Chapter 1522. Some people said that the three islands of Fangzhong, Penglai, and Yingzhou were actually referring to Fusang Island. If one looked carefully at the map of Fusang Island, he would find that it was actually composed of four different large islands. They were Hokkaido, Honshu, Shikoku, and Gyuzhou. According to geological analysis, the two large islands of Shikoku and Gyuzhou should have been one large island. Later, there was a huge geological change, causing this large island to be separated into two large islands. If this was the case, then Fusang Island should essentially be composed of three large islands, which happen to correspond to Fangzhong Island, Yingzhou Island, and Penglai Island. However, this was very different from the three immortal islands recorded in the Sage Relic. First of all, these three immortal islands were controlled by the super boss, sect leader Tontian. Only immortals and disciples of the Jie school were allowed to live there. How could Fusang people live there? However, after thinking about it carefully, since the Battle of God's investiture, the Jie school had been completely weakened. Sect leader Tontian was imprisoned in the Purple Cloud Palace by Dao ancestor Hongjun. The masters of the Jie school were all dead and injured. The rest were just some small cats and dogs. There were not even existences at the Emperor Sword level. The control of the Jie school over the three immortal islands was naturally greatly reduced. Moreover, the Heavenly Court also took the opportunity to kill the Jie school. Therefore, it was not impossible for the three immortal islands to completely break away from the control of the Jie school and become a battlefield of slaughter. As for the records of the Fusang people in Yanhuang, it happened to appear after the end of the Zhou dynasty. Before that, there had never been any records of the Fusang people. If this was the case, then Fusang Island might really be formed by the three immortal islands. After all, these three immortal islands were the foundation of the Jie school. If one wanted to completely destroy the foundation of the Jie school, it would be a matter of course to destroy these three immortal islands and make them completely a barren land for mortals to live in. Unfortunately, the memory of Penglai and the other two immortal islands in the Sage Relic was completely gone after the Great God-Confirmant Tribulation. Of course, Gahan did not think that Saint Jia would be indifferent to the three immortal islands. There is only one reason why there was no memory, and that was that Saint Jia had deliberately erased the memories of the three immortal islands in the Saint Relic to cover up the ugly things he had done back then. However, this was only Gahan's guess after all. The truth could not be determined before the investigation was clear. However, since Fusang Island was so suspicious, Gahan decided to take Song Yifei to Fusang Island in person to search for some useful clues. It just so happened that Wuzhong Shifang should be on Fusang Island at this time. Gahan could take the opportunity to see what Wuzhong Shifang wanted to do. Why did he betray humanity and run to Fusang Island? Moreover, he even had a close relationship with Yuan Ko on Fusang Island. Perhaps Tontian was behind this. Therefore, Gahan returned to Yanjing City at the last minute. After informing Lu Shihua and Liu Ling, he spent another day with Gu Fan and rushed to Fusang Island with Song Yifei. Lu Shihua and Liu Ling originally wanted to set off with Gahan, but Gahan rejected them. The reason was quite simple. Yanjing City was now at a critical moment, and Lu Shihua and Liu Ling were the only two remaining Emperor Sword wielders besides Gahan. If they did not guard Yanjing City, humanity would be in danger. Faced with Gahan's reason, Lu Shihua and Liu Ling could not refute it. They could only accept their fate and continue to stay in Yanjing City, silently watching Gahan and Song Yifei set foot on the territory of Fusang Island. If the three big islands of Fusang Island were to be compared to the three immortal islands in the Sage's Relic's memory, although there was a big difference in appearance, there was still a faint trace of similarity. Among them, the shape of Hokkaido was the most similar to Fangzhong Island. The shape of Gyuzhou and the four countries combined was similar to Yingzhou Island. The remaining Honshu Island was the most similar to Penglai Island. Hence, their target was Honshu Island. When Gahan was almost done explaining to Song Yifei, the two of them had already set foot on the land of Honshu Island. There are humans here. As soon as they set foot on the land of Honshu Island, Song Yifei could not help but exclaim. At that moment, there were two children wearing simple clothes made of leaves. They were looking at Gahan and Song Yifei, who had suddenly walked out of the void, as well as the 12 swordwomen beside Gahan, in fear. Run! Quick run! The strange people are here. The two children were stunned for a moment, then immediately turned and ran as if Gahan and Song Yifei were terrifying enemies. I'll go catch them. The celestial extinguished sword was the first to fly out. How could the two children outrun the celestial extinguished sword? In just 2 or 3 seconds, they were caught by the celestial extinguished sword. He's a real human, not Yuanko. The small hands of the extinguished immortal sword pinched the bodies of the two children, then said to Gu Han with certainty. There were 2 humans on the land of Hanzhou Island, and they were 2 human children. This was very suspicious. Back then, Fusang Island could be said to be the island that had been invaded the most by Yuan Ko. After all, Fusang Island had created the most 2D characters. It was said that the number of Yuan Ko who had landed on Fusang Island in a year was almost equivalent to 1/10 of the total population of Fusang Island. How could Fusang Island escape from the massacre of so many Yuan Ko? In just a year, more than 99% of the people of Fusang Island had died. Only the last tens of thousands of people had escaped by hiding in an underground nuclear base secretly built by Fusang Country. Later, they were discovered by Hong Ru Jiandi and brought back to Yanjing City. This group of people of Fusang Island later became the source of the Fusang bloodline of all humans. After that, the human army entered Fusang Island several times. In the end, they came to the conclusion that all the humans on Fusang Island had died. Fusang Island had completely become Yuan Ko's paradise. There were absolutely no survivors. However, at this moment, on this island, Gahan actually met 2 living Fusang humans. Could it be that the previous detection of humans was wrong? Were there still survivors on Fusang Island? No matter how he thought about it, this was an incredible thing. However, the celestial extinguished sword's inspection would not be wrong. These 2 children were indeed real humans. Where are you from? Are you born and raised here? Where's your village? Gu Han asked the 2 children. As a result, the 2 children shook their heads desperately with a hint of fear in their eyes. Their mouths spat out gibberish in Fusang language. Gohan also knew Fusang language, or rather, he was quite proficient in it. After all, before Gahan became a sword-bearer, he had learned some Fusang language. Later, when he entered Ultraman's dimensional world, he also lived in Fusang for a few days. With Guhan's amazing language talent, he could be considered to have mastered many common Fusang words. It was a pity that Guhan could not understand the Fusang language that these children were speaking. It was not that these children were not speaking Fusang language at all. These children were indeed speaking Fusang language pronunciations. However, the problem was that when they combined these pronunciations, Gahan could not understand them at all. For example, in normal Chinese, they could say, "The weather is good today. Let's go on an outing together." However, in the words of these children, it became, "I'm going on an outing tomorrow. Today, I'm so angry that I can't go." No one could understand what these words meant. This was also the reason why Gu Han was confused when he heard the Fusang language spoken by these children. What should we do? Can any of you think of a way to communicate with these 2 children? Gohan handed this heavy responsibility to the sword ladies behind him. These sword ladies looked at each other and finally ignored Gohan's words. They could not even understand Fusang language, let alone communicate with these 2 children. Jakarta cry. Just as Gahan was having a headache because of this, the 2 children suddenly stretched their fingers into Gahan's arms and looked curiously at Qingpin, who was in the infant nursery bag in Gahan's arms. This little guy was eating a piece of beef jerky, and at the same time, a pair of big eyes sized up the 2 little kids curiously. "Do you want to eat this?" As if seeing through the 2 children's thoughts, Qingpin handed his half-eaten piece of beef jerky to them. Squish! The 2 children nodded vigorously, and Qingpin readily handed the beef jerky to them. The 2 children immediately licked the beef jerky, which was still stained with Qingpin's saliva, as if it was some supreme delicacy. Forget it. Since they are around here, their stronghold must not be far from here. Let's split up and see if we can find their stronghold. Guhan released Qingpin from the infant nursery bag and let her play with the two children. He and the sword ladies split up to search around. Guhan thought that he would be able to find the stronghold behind these two children very quickly. However, to his surprise, Guhan searched almost the surrounding 100 kilometers, but he found nothing except ruins. It was as if these two children had appeared out of thin air. In the end, when Guhan and the sword ladies could only return to the place where they had landed, Qingpin and the two children disappeared together. Guhan couldn't help but turn pale with fright, and he even felt a strand of deep worry. One had to know that the reason why Guhan was at ease leaving Qingpin here to accompany the two children was that Qingpin's current strength was not that of an ordinary ancient sword wielder. In terms of pure strength, Qingpin, who had absorbed half of the power of the Qingping sword, was no weaker than any universe-level Yuan Ko. Even if there was a primeval Yuan Ko, Qingpin could still fight for dozens of minutes. Even if they really encountered a powerful Yuan Ko, Qingpin only needed to send a warning to Guhan, and Guhan would be able to rush back immediately. Therefore, Guhan was at ease leaving Qingpin here, thinking that there would not be too much of a problem. In the end, Qingpin actually disappeared with them. However, fortunately, the trace of connection between Qingpin and Guhan did not disappear. Following this trace of connection, Guhan believed that he could find Qingpin, who had disappeared. Chapter 1523. This is where Qingpin and the others disappeared. When Guhan traced the connection with Qingpin all the way to a wasteland, Guhan's sense of Qingpin had reached its maximum. This also meant that this was where Qingpin was. However, the problem was that what appeared in front of Guhan was a barren stone forest. The ground was full of all kinds of gravel, and there was not even a tree. Beyond the gravel beach was an endless sea. This was a spacious area by the sea. The visibility conditions here were quite good. Therefore, Guhan could be very sure that there was absolutely no Qingpin within a radius of 10 miles. However, according to the sense between Guhan and Qingpin, Qingpin was indeed nearby. There was no doubt about it. While Guhan was still scratching his head for a while, Celestial Execution Sword was the first to mutter to itself, "Strange, this place feels so familiar." Sister, you also have this feeling. I also feel that this place is very familiar, as if I have seen it somewhere before. Celestial Extinguish Sword immediately followed behind Celestial Execution Sword and said. Celestial Captive Sword and Celestial Slayer Sword also nodded, indicating that they indeed felt very familiar with this place. Could it be that this is really Penglai Island? Guhan couldn't help but feel excited. If there were any places that could make the 4 Celestial Execution Swords feel familiar at the same time, it would only be Penglai Island and sect leader Tongtian's Aquamarine Palace. After all, the 4 Celestial Execution Swords had lived there for tens of millions of years. Of course, they would be very familiar with that place. Celestial Execution Sword, Celestial Slayer Sword. Do you think this is Penglai Island? Or even Aquamarine Palace? Guhan asked the 4 of them excitedly. Now that you mention it, it really feels a little similar. Celestial Slayer Sword said while covering its mouth. No, I remember that Penglai Island is a paradise on Earth. There is definitely no place as bad as the environment around here. Look at the gravel on the ground and the bare land. How is this our extremely beautiful Penglai Island? Kill Immortal Sword frowned and said incredulously, "It's not strange that it's desolate. After all, the Chan sect and the Rin sect looted the entire Penglai Island and even completely cut off the immortal meridians of the 3 islands. Therefore, the 3 islands of Penglai Island, which looked like a paradise on Earth, are long gone. It's normal for it to become desolate," Guhan indifferently said. The 4 Immortal Execution Swords lowered their heads at the same time. Guhan's words clearly touched their hearts. Wait, why does this stone look so familiar? That's the rock in our green touring palace. Immortal Trapping Sword looked at the rock on the ground and suddenly exclaimed, "That's impossible. The stones in our aquamarine palace are all huge. How can there be such a crappy stone that's not even the size of a fist?" Exterminate Immortal Sword subconsciously denied. However, Immortal Trapping Sword's words touched Gahan. He could not help but pick up a stone from the ground and put it in front of his eyes to observe it carefully. Then, in an instant, Gohan's eyes flashed with an astonishing light. He immediately controlled a fragment of consciousness to enter the small stone. Then, his whole body began to tremble with excitement. "Lady Immortal Trapping Sword, you're right. This stone is indeed an old item from the Aquamarine Palace. Moreover, you must be very familiar with it," Gohan said in a low voice. "Impossible. I remember every stone in the Aquamarine Palace. There's absolutely no such crappy stone under my feet." Exterminate Immortal Sword still did not believe Gahan. She picked up a stone from the ground and was about to throw it into the sea. However, the moment she held the stone with both hands, she was completely stunned. No way could this stone be. Exterminate Immortal Sword's teeth chattered with excitement. "It's the treasure-snatching rock. This stone is the treasure-snatching rock." Exterminate Immortal Sword tightly held the small stone in her hand and tried to speak in an indifferent tone. "Impossible. Is this the legendary treasure-snatching rock? Isn't that a peerless and incomparably hard divine object in the world? It was used by Hong Jun ancestor to store primordial treasures. How could it have turned into gravel on the ground? Don't make fun of me." Xian Yuan's sword also picked up a stone from the ground. However, she could not sense anything about it. She only felt that it was an ordinary stone in her hand. "This is the treasure-snatching rock. It can't be wrong. The four of us lived in this rock for millions of years. Later, the old master let us cultivate by his side. How could we be wrong about this stone?" Exterminate Immortal Sword snatched the fragment of the treasure-snatching rock from Xian Yuan's sword's hand. She held it in her hand as if it was her home. "Forget it. Since the moment I was born, I've never seen a treasure-snatching rock. It's normal that I don't recognize it. Whatever you say." Xian Yuan's sword spread out her hands and said indifferently, "Extinguishing Immortal. When did you leave the treasure-snatching rock?" Guhan's heart skipped a beat, and he asked the Extinguishing Immortal Sword in a low voice. "I don't remember the specifics. At that time, we closed our eyes and opened them for hundreds of thousands of years. How could I tell the exact time? However, I remember that when we left the treasure-snatching rock, the old master kept us by his side. Later, he took us to witness the scene of goddess Nvaiwa, proving her Tao and becoming a sage. We will never forget that scene for the rest of our lives." Exterminate Immortal said with nostalgia. "So you left the treasure-snatching rock before goddess Nvaiwa, proved her Tao, and became a sage, and created the human tribe." Gohan's heart began to beat slightly. "Do you remember why you left the treasure-snatching rock?" Gohan asked again. "Of course it was the old master who took us away." Exterminate Immortal Sword rolled her eyes at Gohan. "Did you see sect leader Tong Tian the moment you left? Did he personally take you away from the treasure-snatching rock?" Gohan asked. "Of course, yes. Damn it. I don't remember. Sorry. It's been too long. I can't remember how we left. Sisters, do you remember?" Exterminate Immortal Sword scratched her head. Unable to recall, she could only throw the question to the other sisters. "I can't remember either." Exterminate Immortal Sword shook her head. Exterminate Immortal Sword followed suit. Only Immortal Trapping Sword's expression changed. "Sister Immortal Trapping Sword, what about you? Do you remember?" Exterminate Immortal Sword took the initiative to ask. "None of you remember. How could I remember?" Immortal Trapping Sword lowered her head and said, "Come on, it seems that the four of us have completely forgotten. But Gahan, why are you asking about the past? Shouldn't we hurry up and find Qingpin?" Exterminate Immortal Sword said impatiently. "No need. I think I already know where Qingpin is." Gohan looked around and found the biggest stone in the stone forest. It was almost the size of a human body. Gahan placed both hands on the biggest stone. After sensing the world inside, he nodded and said, "There's a sealed space here." It can only be opened with a special method. This should be a special method of the tribe of severity. I don't know how to do it. Do any of you know? A special method of the tribe of severity? Exterminate immortal sword was stunned. Then, she imitated Gahan and placed both hands on the stone. With just a slight touch, the celestial exterminating sword immediately reacted and said, F***CK. It really is our GS School's prime, clear six directions great technique. I didn't think that after so many years, I would still be able to see such a pure technique. It's actually the six directions technique of severity. Exterminate immortal sword was moved. At the same time, seeing the curious expression in Gahan's eyes, it took the initiative to explain. The six directions technique of severity is a spell created by the Old Master. It's a spell specially used to seal alternate spaces. If you want to enter the alternate space sealed by the six directions technique of severity, you have to completely master this spell. Then, you have to obtain a spiritual talisman passed down by the Old Master. Only then can you open the world sealed by this spell. It's absolutely impossible for an outsider to enter without these two conditions. Even a sage can't do it. At most, a sage can destroy this world completely. It's impossible for them to enter this world. You're saying that this spell is specifically used to seal alternate dimensions? What is an alternate dimension? Guhan asked. To put it bluntly, an alternate space is a dimensional gap. Xian Yuan's sword rushed to explain. These four guys have stayed in the modern society for so long, but their brains haven't adjusted yet. They have to explain it using terms from the primeval age. What alternate space? It's just a dimensional gap that you speak of. You can say that. Exterminate immortal sword glared at Xian Yuan's sword fiercely. Obviously, it was very dissatisfied with Xian Yuan's sword's mockery. All right, don't quarrel. It seems that poor Qing has entered this strange space. You're all sword maidens of the GS sect. You should know how to open this alternate space, right? Guhan said immediately. Sorry, we can't open it. Exterminate immortal sword smiled bitterly. We're no longer the four immortal exterminating swords of the past. What's flowing in our bodies isn't immortal force either. We're now sword maidens. What's flowing in our bodies is the power of the sword essence. Without immortal force, we can't use the six directions technique of severity. That's right. Using the prime, clear six harmonies technique is only one of the conditions. The other condition is the talisman bestowed by the Old Master. The Old Master has never bestowed such a thing to us. Even if he did, all of the talismans would be destroyed when we go against the Old Ancestor. If we can't meet these two conditions, how can we enter this alternate space? Exterminate immortal sword concluded. Let's give it a try. If it doesn't work, we'll think of another way. Gohan's heart tightened. However, he still let exterminate immortal sword test it. I told you, if we can't meet these two conditions, we can't succeed even if we try. Although exterminate immortal sword muttered, it still gave face to Gahan. It placed its hand on the broken stone of the treasure-snatching rock and began to operate and push the sword essence in its body according to the method of the six directions technique of severity. In the next second, a stream of clear chi shot out of the broken stone and gradually evolved into a door in the air. Chapter 1524. What the hell? How do we get in? When they officially stepped into the alternate space in the portal, the immortal extinguishing sword did not seem to have recovered from the shock just now and was still murmuring to itself. Could it be that sword essence and immortal force are interchangeable? The Xian Yuan sword looked happy and immediately made a few hand gestures. Then it shook its head helplessly and said, "It still doesn't work. Sword essence and immortal force are not interchangeable. I still can't use some immortal arts with sword essence. Maybe this six directions grand method of prime clear is a special case." The immortal extinguishing sword shook its head and said, "The key is where the spiritual talismans in our bodies come from. Without the spiritual talismans given by the Old Master, we can't come in at all. Maybe sect leader Tong Tian secretly planted spiritual talismans in your bodies, but you just don't know it." Gohan clapped his hands and said, "Well, Now is not the time to worry about these problems. I have already felt that Qing Pin is in this alternate space. When we explore this alternate space clearly, we will probably understand the whole story. Okay, let's go now. The immortal extinguishing sword cheered. When it was ready to fly out, its body turned into a light and returned to the scabbard of Gahan. Not only the immortal extinguishing sword, but the other sword ladies were also directly put into the scabbard by Guhan and then into the dimensional pocket. In the end, Guhan simply put all his clothes into the dimensional pocket, completely exposing himself naked. Wow, Guhan, what are you doing? Pervert. Guhan's behavior shocked Song Yifei, who immediately wanted to cover his eyes, but at the same time, he secretly observed Guhan with his two pupils. Quickly take off your clothes and put on this, Guhan said in Song Yifei's ear. At the same time, he plucked a few huge banana leaves from a nearby tree and put them in Song Yifei's hand. At the same time, he wrapped his lower body with a banana leaf to ensure that the most important part of his body would not be exposed. What the hell do you want? Although Song Yifei did not understand why Guhan would do this, he acted quickly. Due to her trust in Guhan and the fact that she already had a physical relationship with Guhan, Song Yifei simply took off her clothes. At the same time, she learned from Guhan to protect the important parts of her body with banana leaves. It was Qing Pin who told me. She asked me to hide my identity and pretend to be the same as the people here. Guhan took the initiative to explain when he saw that Song Yifei had already worn the leaves. That's right, this is still not enough. We still don't look like the people here. Guhan pulled his hand behind him and pulled out two fellows who were hiding in the bushes at the side. These two guys looked at Guhan and Song Yifei with extreme fear in their eyes. Their limbs were constantly struggling, trying to escape from Guhan's control. But how could these two guys do this? They were like chickens in a snakeskin bag. They were just struggling in vain. Guhan's eyes glanced at the two guys who were struggling. Then he grabbed a handful of soil from the roadside and rubbed it directly on his body. Soon, his body was covered with dirty soil. Song Yifei also enjoyed the same treatment. Guhan used the soil to turn into an African girl. But this was not enough. Guhan neatly grabbed all kinds of hair accessories on Song Yifei's head. Song Yifei's black and shiny long hair fell down along her shoulders. Unfortunately, such perfect long hair could only be seen for a short time. Guhan got a basin of mud out of nowhere and poured half of it on Song Yifei's head. The other half was poured on Guhan's head. In this way, Guhan and Song Yifei perfectly became the natives of this world. At least they looked exactly the same as the natives of this world. They all looked like primitive humans. You two go to sleep first. You'll be fine after a week. Guhan's sword fell on the heads of the two natives. The two natives instantly fainted. Then they were thrown into the deep bushes by Guhan. They would not be found for a while. After that, Guhan and Song Yifei, who were disguised as natives, swaggered to the place where Qing Pin was. This world is too desolate. It looks like hell. After walking in this alternate dimension for less than 10 minutes, Song Yifei could not help but sigh. Although there was a banana tree and a shrub at the place where they had just landed, it looked like a lush green patch of land. But when they really stepped into the core area of this alternate dimension, they found that this alternate dimension was simply a world of hell on Earth. The small piece of green just now seemed to be the only green in this alternate dimension. Other than that, all the soil was bare and exposed. What was more frightening was that the color of the soil was still red. It felt like it was soaked in blood. Some rivers could be seen everywhere in this world. However, these rivers were not flowing with water. Instead, they were flowing with golden magma. The hot magma flowed unscrupulously on this land and even converged into a river. There were also many deep holes in the ground. If one was not careful, hot magma would spur out of these holes. If Song Yifei and Guhan were not both immortal sword wielders and could use sword chi to block the magma, Song Yifei and Guhan would have been swallowed by the sudden magma attack several times. In addition to this extremely terrible environment, Guhan and Song Yifei encountered many life forms along the way. Some of these life forms were pure humans. They were walking with their heads lowered in satisfaction, as if they were searching for something on the ground. These humans looked exactly like the two children that Guhan had met before. Obviously, those two children were children that came from this alternate dimension. However, how these two children left the alternate dimension and returned to the real world, Guhan did not know. Humans accounted for about 90% of the life forms that Guhan saw along the way. In addition to humans, there were all kinds of strange life forms. Some life forms had the head of a sheep and the body of a human. Some had the body of a cow and the head of a human. And some looked like parts of various animals put together. Anyway, there were all kinds of strange life forms. Humans had a unified name for such life forms. Monsters. Yes, that was right. In addition to humans, most of the remaining life forms in this alternate dimension were monsters. Gahan had seen some monsters in Yuan-Ko's information, but there were other monsters that Gahan had never seen in Yuan-Ko's information. Hey, what are you two humans standing there for? Hurry up and look for the longevity fruit for me. You lowly humans just like to slack off. You must eat this grandpa's whip. Just as Gahan and Song Yifei were taking the opportunity to observe this alternate dimension, a monster suddenly rushed over from nearby. A thunderous whip shadow lashed at Gahan and Song Yifei. This guy actually dared to hit me. I'll tear him apart. This monster was not very powerful. It was about the level of a tiger-level Yuan-Ko. Song Yifei was an immortal sword wielder after all. How could he be willing to be whipped by such a monster? He wanted to fight back immediately. However, Gahan grabbed Song Yifei's hand in time to stop him from fighting back. He then used his body to shield Song Yifei, using his own body to take the monster's whip. Although the monster had used all its strength in the whip, the problem was that even if a tiger-level Yuan-Ko attacked, he would not be able to hurt an Emperor's sword. It was just like how an ant could not hurt a car. With this whip, it was impossible to even leave a trace of blood on Guhan's body. However, if there was really no wound, it would be too strange. Feeling helpless, Gahan could only control his body. The part of his body that was hit by the whip became red and swollen. It looked like he had really been hurt by the whip. The monster lashed out more than 10 times. Meanwhile, Gahan used his body to protect Song Yifei. At the same time, he was trembling in fear. He lowered his head and did not even dare to look at the monster. Mother asterisk Kerr, look for the longevity fruit for me honestly. If you find it, I'll let you rest. If you can't find it, I'll beat you up tonight to vent my anger. The monster was probably tired, so he walked away while cursing. Meanwhile, Gahan and Song Yifei were still bent over in fear. They did not even dare to look at the monster. The monster was very satisfied with Gahan's attitude. Why did you stop me? I promise I'll kill this damn monster as fast as I can. I won't let other monsters find out. Song Yifei said angrily. It had been a long time since Song Yifei had been humiliated by a monster like this. You can hide it from other monsters, but can you hide it from other humans? Gahan said calmly. At the same time, he looked around at the other humans who were secretly watching them. You can't kill these humans too, can you? They are our compatriots. Moreover, I promise that they will definitely tell the monster now. *M. Song Yifei cursed. However, he did not dwell on this issue. But fortunately, after being beaten up by this monster, I also found some clues. Guhan took a deep look at the dark red sky in the distance and said, What clues? Song Yifei immediately asked impatiently. Firstly, when the monster scolded us just now, half of his language was the same messy Fusang language as that of the two little girls. However, the Fusang language was mixed with some primeval language. Primitive language? What's that? Song Yifei asked in confusion. It's a language from the primitive era. For modern humans, it has been lost. However, because of the sage's relic, I'll learn this language. What's the second clue? The second clue is that the monsters here are all real monsters. Genuine. Monsters born and raised on Earth. Chapter 1525. I found it. I found 3 longevity fruit S. A human near Gahan suddenly shouted excitedly. Of course, this guy was still speaking in the Fusang language, but for the sake of the reader's understanding, he had changed it into a normal language. As far as Gahan was concerned, he still didn't quite understand what he was saying. Scram! Following the human shout, the demon that had whipped Gahan earlier walked over. After confirming the item in the other party's hand, he impatiently waved his hand at the human, and the human happily ran towards the back. And through this human, Guhan also successfully found out what exactly the longevity fruit was. This longevity fruit was actually a fiery red, fat worm with magma-like skin. Yes, this thing with the extremely auspicious name of the longevity fruit was actually a huge worm that was constantly twisting its body, causing Song Yifei, who saw it for the first time, to feel extremely disgusted. What do these demons want these insects for? After feeling disgusted, Song Yifei asked Guhan curiously, "What else can I do?" "Of course it's to eat," Guhan said indifferently. "That thing can actually be eaten." Song Yifei was shocked by Guhan's words and immediately felt even more disgusted in his heart. It's just like having an extremely high amount of protein, and at the same time, it contains all sorts of amino acids and nutrients needed by life. For a life form, as long as the surface of the worm's body can be kept clean, then this thing is the most nutritious food in the world. Why can't it be eaten? Guhan smiled slightly. At the same time, he stabbed his left hand in the ground and pulled upwards, pulling out a fiery red longevity fruit. Looks like this thing lives underground, and it doesn't need to use other food. It only needs to rely on the heat underground to convert it into protein in its body. Furthermore, it is extremely sensitive to demonic energy. Once it discovers that something is wrong, it will directly drill into the depths of the ground. No wonder these demons have to rely on humans to dig these longevity fruit. Guhan held the longevity fruit in his hand and weighed it in his hand, then understood the nature of this thing. Then do the humans here rely on eating these longevity fruit to survive? Song Yifei said in disgust. It shouldn't be. The number of longevity fruit underground is limited. If they were to be used as food for humans, more than half of them would have starved to death. These longevity fruit should only have the qualifications to be eaten by demons. Guhan laughed, his palm quickly pierced into the ground, and in the blink of an eye, he grabbed the 5 longevity fruit that were constantly moving. Ordinary people might not even be able to catch one of these bugs in a day, but to Guhan, these bugs were just bugs. They were very easy to catch. I found it. I found 3 longevity fruit. Although Guhan did not know how to speak the language here, it was not a problem for him to repeat the strange Fusang language that the human had spoken just now. The demon was quickly attracted by Guhan, and when it saw that Guhan and Song Yifei each had 3 longevity fruit in their hands, it looked at the 2 humans in surprise. This demon clearly remembered that when it had beaten up the other party, there was nothing in the other party's hands. In the end, it had only been a few minutes, and the other party had already caught 6 longevity fruit. Wasn't the speed a little too fast? Could it be that there's a nest of longevity fruit underground? The demon looked at the ground beneath Guhan's feet with some envy. After chasing Guhan away, he started to dig impatiently, but in the end, he did not find anything. The 6 longevity fruit in Guhan and Song Yifei's hands seemed to have become the best pass. Along the way, many demons passed by, and when they saw the longevity fruit in Guhan and Song Yifei's hands, they all turned a blind eye to it and did not have any intention of stopping the 2 of them. Thus, after a long journey of 20 minutes, Guhan and Song Yifei finally arrived at the core area of this alternate dimension. It was a city made of wood that looked extremely simple and crude. And in this city, Guhan felt an extremely strong connection with Qingpin. It seemed that Qingpin was currently in this city. At the entrance of the city, there were 3 monsters with tiger heads guarding it. Most of the people entering and leaving the city were monsters, and there were very few humans. "You 2 humans, come over here." The tiger demon noticed that Guhan and Song Yifei were standing motionlessly at the city gate, and immediately said with a somewhat irritable tone, although the other party was speaking in Fusang language that he could not understand. Judging from the other party's tone, Guhan understood that the other party wanted him to go over. Thus, Guhan pulled Song Yifei over, and the three tiger-headed demons did not waste any time and directly snatched the 6 longevity fruit from Guhan and Song Yifei's hands. Then, they took out 2 burlap bags and threw them into Guhan and Song Yifei's hands. Finally, they kicked their butts and sent them into the city. I must kill this demon later. He actually dared to kick my butt. Song Yifei touched his, but that was only wrapped in leaves, and said while gritting his teeth, "Leave this to me. I will personally kill him. He actually dared to kick my woman's, but he must die," Guhan said indifferently, while Song Yifei's heart instantly surged with a sense of shyness. "By the way, what's in this cloth bag?" Song Yifei took out the burlap bag that the demon had thrown at him. Opening the burlap bag, he discovered that there was actually a black pill inside. It looked like a Melissa. "This seems to be a collection of energy." Guhan felt the thing inside the Melissa and finally said, "Energy collection? What is this thing?" Song Yifei asked in confusion. "You can think of it as something that has been refined a step further from the nutrient solution." Guhan laughed. "If such a pill were to be eaten, it would probably be equivalent to 4 to 5 days of energy. This kind of pill is probably the food of this world's humans." "Forget it. I can't eat this thing anyway. It's disgusting to look at it." Song Yifei casually wanted to throw the pill away, but in the end, Guhan reacted quickly and took the pill back into his hand. He stuffed it into his linen pocket and said, "Don't throw it away. There might be other uses for it." "I don't care. Since you already know the location of the poor, let's go and save her. I don't want to stay in this damn place for a second longer," Song Yifei said somewhat irritably. "We must quickly find out where the Tongtian sect leader is hiding and then save Master. We don't have time to waste here." "Don't worry. Qingpin told me that she's very safe here. Let's first figure out what's going on here," Guhan said with a smile. At this time, another human entered the city after handing over 3 longevity fruits. Guhan brought Song Yifei and quietly followed behind this human. Through this tracking, he discovered that the position of humans in this city was rather pitiful. Those demons were all walking in the middle of the main road, and as humans, they could only stick to the base of the wall, bend their backs, and walk forward while trembling. He didn't even dare to look directly at the demons in the middle of the road. His status was even worse than that of a slave. Although there were many houses in the city, some of them were houses and some were shops. However, as the human walked, he didn't dare to approach a single house. He only let out a long sigh of relief when he arrived at an extremely remote place in the city, and arrived in front of a house that was even more dilapidated than all the houses in the city. It was as if he had been freed in an instant, and directly entered the house. Guhan and Song Yifei naturally followed behind the human and walked in together. After entering, he discovered that this seemed to be a place where he could eat and stay at the same time. However, the conditions were very simple and crude. The place to eat was just a long table, and the place to stay was a simple thatched bed. After the human went in, he carefully scraped off a small piece of his pill and handed it to a woman who looked like a boss. He swallowed the rest of the pill in one gulp, then fell onto the bed without washing his face or feet, and instantly fell asleep. In fact, most of the humans in the thatched hut were sleeping soundly, and there were very few humans who were awake. "Hey, pay up." Perhaps it was because the sentence was very short, but Guhan could understand the lady boss's Fusong language. "Here you go. No need to keep the change." Guhan was not willing to be like the human just now, who carefully cut off a small piece of the pill as payment. He directly threw the pill in his hand to the lady boss. What surprised Guhan was that after the lady boss saw Guhan throw a whole pill at her, she immediately became extremely vigilant. She carefully looked around, and after confirming that there were no monsters nearby, she quietly opened the door behind her, then waved to Guhan, motioning for Guhan and Song Yifei to come in. "What does this feel like? It's like a spy meeting," Song Yifei complained. But as the saying goes, the skilled are bold. Song Yifei did not think that there was anything in this city that could stop him and Guhan. So he simply took Guhan's hand and walked into the small room that the lady boss opened. After sending Guhan and Song Yifei in, the lady boss immediately closed the door of the small room, pretending to be lazy and idle again, and looked at everyone who passed by outside the door. Chapter 1526. Comrade, you're finally here. Our people are ready, and we'll act tonight. Take me to your hiding place later, and we'll pick you up and leave here tonight. As soon as Gahan and Song Yifei entered the small house, they found a middle-aged man in the house, talking to Gahan and Song Yifei eagerly, although Gahan could not understand a word he said. However, this did not mean that Gahan did not find anything else. On the contrary, Gahan made a huge discovery about this person. Although this person was dressed exactly like the natives of this world, Gahan could feel an aura that the natives of this alternate dimension did not have from this person. How should he put it? Unlike the rigid, sorrowful, and despairing natives in this alternate dimension who rarely had emotional changes, Gahan felt sunshine, passion, nervousness, and many other emotions from this person. More importantly, this person had a confident temperament, which only humans who lived and grew up in a normal environment would have. To put it simply, this human did not seem to be a native of this alternate dimension, but seemed to come from the outside world like Gahan and Song Yifei. If judging from his temperament, he seemed to be very idealistic, then the looming dimensional pocket on his waist perfectly exposed his identity. Not only was this guy not a native here, but he was also a sword-bearer. Since he was a sword-bearer, it was easy to deal with him. Gahan did not bother to pretend anymore, so he directly said to the man in Chinese, "Which base city are you from? Why are you here? Who are you?" The man was taken aback. He immediately took out his sword lady from his dimensional pocket, but he quickly reacted. No matter how he looked at it, this human in front of him shouldn't be his enemy. "My name is Gu Fan, and this is my wife, Song Yifei. We are both famous sword-bearers in Yuzhong City." Gahan used his son's name as soon as he opened his mouth. After all, the name Gahan was not very suitable to be used. Because Song Yifei had been missing in the human world for 20 years, not many people knew about him. It was not a big deal, even if he used his real name. Hearing that she was Gahan's wife, Song Yifei blushed and leaned on Gahan's shoulder, shyly like a wife. "Oh my God, people from Yuzhong City. Isn't Yuzhong City being besieged by the 12 Zuwus? What are you doing here?" After seeing Gahan take out his famed sword Maiden's hilt, the other party immediately relaxed and asked Gahan curiously, knowing that the sword Maiden wouldn't lie. Yes, Yuzhong City was about to be finished, but then Shihua Jindi appeared. Anyway, Yuzhong City's crisis has been resolved. Now humans are moving to Yanjing City, preparing to rebuild our world. Come on, what's going on with you? Why are you here? My name is Feng Wuzhong. No, my name is Amakusa Ichiro. I'm a sword wielder of the Moscow base city. Just from my name, you can tell that I'm a sword wielder of the Yamato clan. After our Moscow base was attacked, I didn't have time to evacuate with the rest of the troops, so I came to Fusang Island to take a risk, hoping to see the scenery of my hometown and have a memory before I die. In the end, I accidentally stumbled into this dimensional gap and found that all the humans here had become slaves. I was so sad and angry that I wanted to save them all. Amakusa Ichiro said, "By the way, you mentioned Shihua Jindi just now. Is this Shihua Jindi, the former chairman of the Sword Committee Union, Shihua Sword Deity, Lord Shihua?" Amakusa Ichiro asked curiously. "Didn't I hear that Lord Shihua was killed by the 12 Zuwus? Why has she returned and even become the Shihua Sword Emperor? Could it be that she has already ascended the throne and proclaimed herself as the Shihua Sword Emperor?" That's right. Let me tell you, Lord Shihua was not killed by the 12 Zuwus. He was betrayed by that damned Zhang. However, the Shihua Sword Emperor was blessed by the heavens, and he was actually saved by her master, the Hongjun Sword Emperor, who was passing by. After Hongjun Jindi cured Sword Deity Shihua, Sword Deity Shihua endured hardships until he had the power of an Emperor sword wielder. He even jumped out and killed the 12 Zuwus and Zhang, giving us humans a peaceful world. This was not said by Gahan, but by Song Yifei. What? Sword Deity Shihua has become the Emperor? Hasn't he been missing for almost 20 years? Once again, Amakusa Ichiro was shocked. More importantly, Gohan realized that Amakusa Ichiro had actually heard of his name and knew of the existence of sword deity Hongjun. For a young sword wielder of the sword level, this was a very strange thing. After all, Gohan was already an internet celebrity at that time. I heard that he went to some mountain cave to fool around with some wild women. I also know that. At this point, Song Ifei rolled his eyes at Gohan and continued. Here's the thing. We were ordered by Shihua Jindi to look for Master Wuzhong Shifeng, the missing immortal sword wielder. Someone reported seeing Master Wuzhong Shifeng on Fusang Island, so Shihua Jindi asked us to come and take a look. If we found Master Wuzhong Shifeng in trouble, we should try our best to rescue him or report to Yanjing City. Shihua Jindi will personally come to rescue Master Wuzhong Shifeng. After all, humans have suffered heavy losses, and we don't want to give up on any immortal sword wielder. How do you know that Master Wuzhong Shifeng is still alive? Amakusa Ichiro was shocked by Song Ifei's words, and then seemed to realize that he had said the wrong thing. So he immediately said, isn't Master Wuzhong Shifeng dead? He's still alive. Amakusa Ichiro pretended to be shocked. I don't know either, so Shihua Jindi ordered me to come here and see if I could find Master Wuzhong Shifeng. As a result, I came here by chance, Gohan replied. Do you know anything about Master Wuzhong Shifeng? Tell me, so we can report to our superiors. Gohan said excitedly. I don't know anything. Amakusa Ichiro waved his hand. Then forget it. Gohan sighed helplessly, then looked around and asked curiously, what's going on here? Why are there so many humans in this place? And the language of the humans here is very strange. It sounds like your Fusang language, but it sounds different. Do you know what's going on? Actually, I'm not too sure myself, but I've been here for a few months now, and I've vaguely figured out some things. Amakusa Ichiro's eyes darted around as he took the initiative to explain to Gohan. I believe you've seen it along the way. The demons here are not primordial bandits. They don't have dimensional energy, so they're not primordial bandits from the outside world. They're demons born and raised in this world. As for why these monsters live here, I don't know. As for these humans, they seem to be the descendants of refugees who escaped here from the Great Apocalypse era. I don't know how these human ancestors escaped in here, but they were discovered by this monster. They captured these humans and made them their slaves, making them catch the longevity fruit, which is also a red-skinned insect. The humans here have been enslaved by these damned monsters for thousands of years, and what they eat are all strange pills made from some mud and stones by the monsters. They're called fortune pills by the humans here. Although eating one can make one hungry, eating too many of them can easily make one's brain stupid. These humans eat too many fortune pills, and their brains are in a mess, to the point that the original Fusang language is messed up. If I hadn't lived here for a few months and barely understood the grammar of the Fusang language here, I wouldn't have been able to understand what they were saying. Sigh. At this point, Amakusa Ichiro sighed and said with a face full of pity, although the humans here are a little stupid, they are all our compatriots. I definitely can't watch them suffer here and ignore them. So I decided to save them all and arrange for them to be sent to a safe place. In the future, I will send them to our base city and let them live a normal life again. Good man, I'll give you a like. Hearing Amakusa Ichiro's words, Gohan immediately gave him a thumbs up in admiration, and at the same time took the initiative to ask, is there anything we can help with? Just say it. We are all human compatriots. As long as we can help, we will definitely help you. Thank you. Thank you both. Amakusa Ichiro cupped his fists and bowed to Gohan and Song Ifei, then continued, actually, I'm not alone. There are 3 of my companions waiting for me outside. At the same time, they're also responsible for protecting the humans who have been rescued. I found a gap in this world, and through this gap, we can send the humans here out. However, the position of the gap is very steep, and ordinary people can't get through it all. Only with the help of the Sword Mistress can they reach there. So I have been working with some of the smart natives here. He has gathered a group of people outside and has them hide near the gap. and I will escort them through the gap overnight. Originally, I was going to meet with a human here, but I don't know how the boss lady sent you here. Amakusa Ichiro asked curiously, looking at Gohan and Song Yifei. We don't know why either. I just threw a fortune pill to the boss lady, and she brought us here. Gohan said, also puzzled. That's right. Amakusa Ichiro slapped his thigh and said, because the fortune pill is the only food here, the natives will only carefully pay a small amount of fortune pill as an accommodation fee. So the secret signal that the boss lady and I agreed on was to trade a whole fortune pill. In the end, we sent you here. What a coincidence. Chapter 1527. Not long after Gohan and the others entered the room, the indigenous man who came to meet them was also sent in by the landlady. Then, Gohan was stared at by the landlady very vigilantly for a few minutes. It was not until Amakusa Ichiro came out to explain that she let down her guard against Gohan. In the following time, Amakusa Ichiro, Gohan, and the indigenous man discussed and decided that after 7 hours, they would take the indigenous people here and escape from this strange space. After the discussion, Amakusa Ichiro left directly with the indigenous man. He only asked Gohan to meet them at the designated place after a few hours. Gohan, do you think this guy is telling the truth? After parting with Amakusa Ichiro, Song Yifei asked curiously. Half of it is true, and the other half is false. Gohan said with a look of understanding. Most of the things about this place are true, but the thing about Wuzhong Shifeng is false. If I'm right, this guy is actually Wuzhong Shifeng's subordinate. If we really go out with him, I'm afraid we'll be ambushed by Wuzhong Shifeng. I don't know what this Wuzhong Shifeng is thinking and doing. Then, are we still going out with him? Aren't you afraid of being ambushed by Wuzhong Shifeng? Song Yifei laughed. What a joke. If we really go out, then Wuzhong Shifeng will be afraid. Gohan smiled. But I really don't want to fight with this former senior. After all, 20 years ago, I almost became his disciple. I still need to give him some respect. Then what are we going to do now? Song Yifei looked at his personal terminal. There are still 7 hours left. Don't we find something to do? Then let's figure out the background of this place first. We've been here for a long time, and we still don't know what's going on with these monsters. Gohan laughed. When Gohan and Lin Sanjiu were about to capture a few demons to interrogate them, they suddenly heard a series of urgent bells ringing in the city. After the bell rang, the monsters that were wandering on the streets began to run towards the center of the city. Even the monsters outside the city began to run into the city, ignoring the humans who were working hard outside. In the center of the city was the only building that could be called grand in the entire city. All the monsters entered the building one after another. It seems that something big must have happened in this strange space. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gathered all the demons. We must find a way to go in and take a look. Gohan and Song Yifei, who were standing outside the building, looked coldly at the monsters that kept pouring into the building. There were a total of 4 entrances to the building, and each entrance was guarded by 8 demon soldiers with sharp blades. Except for the monsters, almost all the humans avoided the building and did not dare to approach it. Obviously, the building did not allow humans to enter, and most of the demon soldiers were there to stop humans. In this way, it was a little difficult. Gohan and Song Yifei definitely could not force their way in. It was not that Gohan could not defeat these demon soldiers. Even if there were 800,000 demon soldiers in front of Gohan, Gohan would not even blink. However, it was a little troublesome to figure out what was going on, so they still had to find a way to sneak in. But for a while, Gohan could not think of an effective way to sneak in. After all, the difference in appearance between humans and monsters was still too obvious. Without enough props on hand, it was also unrealistic to want to disguise as a monster. Are you at your wit's end? Seeing that Gohan did not move for a while, Song Yifei suddenly squinted his eyes and started laughing. What good idea do you have? Even if Song Yifei did not say anything, Gohan could guess that he must have an idea. Finally, it's time for you to beg me. Song Yifei laughed happily, then took out a sword from his dimensional pocket and gave it to Gohan. Gohan's eyes instantly lit up. Elephant Sword, your famous sword-level sword mistress, is actually the Elephant Sword. There was a reason why Gohan was so surprised. The Elephant Sword, like its name, had the ability to change everything in the world. It could change people into anything that you saw, and the change was extremely realistic. Even if the person was next to you, you would not be able to see any difference in the details. It could even simulate the characteristics of different abilities, such as dimensional power and monster power. It was definitely the strongest sword mistress for sneaking into battle. In terms of transformation, even an Emperor Sword level sword mistress could not reach the level of the Elephant Sword. However, in terms of combat power, the Elephant Sword was very pitiful. It only had the combat power of the lowest famous sword-level sword mistress. Hence, in previous battles, Song Yifei had never taken out the Elephant Sword. After all, it was an artificial sword mistress, so Song Yifei did not need to care about its emotions. Hence, Gohan did not know that Song Yifei's famous sword-level sword mistress was actually the Elephant Sword. Otherwise, Gohan would not have to worry about how to sneak in. Very soon, with the power of the Elephant Sword, Gohan and Song Yifei turned into two bull demons with horns. Because bull demons were the most common in the entire city, even if there were two more of them, the guards at the entrance would not be suspicious. The power of the Elephant Sword was indeed extraordinary. When Gohan and Song Yifei, who had turned into two bull demons, walked into the building in the middle of the city, the guards at the entrance did not notice anything wrong and let Gohan and Song Yifei walk in. Gohan and Song Yifei followed the crowd and passed through a few corridors. Finally, they gathered in a large open space. This was obviously a gathering place for the monsters. Apart from the large open space, there was also a high platform. Gohan could see that there were some armed demon soldiers guarding there. There was also a row of tables and chairs. This high platform was obviously prepared for the leaders. Looks like the monsters here are going to have a meeting. Gohan bit Song Yifei's ear and said, "Let's go a little further. This is not a good position." As they had entered the building relatively late, Gohan was at a position furthest from the high platform. Hence, Gohan pulled Song Yifei's hand and charged through the crowd. They forced their way from the back to the front. Many monsters glared at Gohan, but under the threat of Gohan's sharp horns, most of them chose to keep the peace. Charging around was part of the temperament of monsters, and it was even more so for bull demons. Therefore, although Gohan and Song Yifei's behavior was overbearing, other monsters did not find it strange. Instead, they felt that it was a normal reaction. When Gohan squeezed to the front, the bell rang again. This time, it was obviously the bell for the end of the gathering and the beginning of the meeting. Two monsters dressed in gorgeous clothes with extraordinary auras and strength walked out from behind the high platform and sat on the tables and chairs. These two big monsters were actually women, and Gohan actually knew them. One of them was dressed in green and looked to be in her 60s or 70s. She looked no different from an ordinary old person, but one could vaguely see some characteristics of a monkey. This woman was called Incongruent's Divine Mother. In the memory of the sage's relic, Incongruent's Divine Mother was also an expert in the GS sect. Later, when she saw that the myriad immortal array of the GS sect was broken, she fled in a hurry. Moreover, she fled so quickly that Saint Junti, who wanted to capture her as a mount, could not find her. In the end, nothing happened. The other woman looked to be in her 20s or 30s. She wore a feather dress that was as white as the clouds, and her mature temperament could not be concealed. Not only did Gohan see this woman in the memory of the sage's relic, but he also saw her in the illusion of the 9 prefectures' deer-seeking realm. This woman was the eldest sister of the 3 sky fairies, Lady Yunxiao. However, according to the records in the sage's relic, Lady Yunxiao should have been suppressed by Taishang Laojun. However, it was unknown how she ended up here. Initially, Gohan thought that there was no high-end combat power in this alternate space. However, after seeing Incongruent's Divine Mother and Lady Yunxiao, Gohan knew that he was wrong. Incongruent's Divine Mother and Lady Yunxiao were both at the desolate level Yuan Ko level. They belonged to the top Yuan Ko. Of course, These two were not Yuan Ko. They were monsters that were born and raised in this world. Patriarch Incongruence, Patriarch Yin Xiao. May I know which patriarch has rung the roving jade bell and summoned us here? When the two big shots appeared, some of the demons below the stage impatiently asked. Naturally, we have something important to summon you here. Incongruence, Divine Mother said in a deep voice. The reason why we gathered everyone here today is because the supreme holy item that has been missing for many years, the Khanate Cardinal Treasure, has finally returned to the GS sect today. What? The Khanate Cardinal Treasure of the GS sect has returned. All the monsters shouted in shock when they heard the news. This news obviously shocked every monster. Through this conversation, Gahan could finally confirm one thing. All the monsters here were from the GS sect back then. Incongruence, Divine Mother, and Lady Yin Xiao were also fish that escaped the net after the Great God Investiture War. That's very interesting. The remaining evils of the GS sect are actually hiding here. As the leader of these evils, will the Grandmaster of Heaven let this place go? He will definitely gather all these loyal disciples back, and we will definitely be able to find clues about sect leader Tong Tian here, Guhan said in his heart. Chapter 1528. Patriarchs, we've been isolated from the outside world for hundreds of thousands of years. Apart from a group of humans that broke in 1,000 years ago, nothing else has come in. How did the primordial cardinal treasure of our GS school come back? Which primordial cardinal treasure of our GS school came back? Patriarchs, please tell us. One of the monsters below the stage said loudly. This primordial cardinal treasure was brought back by 2 human slaves. This primordial cardinal treasure is the supreme patriarch of our GS school, the supreme sage in the world. It's also our master, the sect leader of Tongtian's sword, the Qingping sword. After Divine Mother Wudong finished speaking, all the monsters were shocked again. It's the Qingping sword. Oh my god, isn't that the legendary primordial cardinal treasure? I've only heard of the Qingping sword's name. I never imagined that the Qingping sword would really come back. Dad, what is this Qingping sword? Why haven't I heard of it before? There was a heated discussion below the stage. Many monsters knelt down excitedly and kowtowed to the sky when they heard the name of the Qingping sword. Most of the monsters were at a loss when they heard the name. It was obvious that the name of the Qingping sword had never appeared in their minds. To them, it was something very distant. All right, I know everyone has a lot of questions, but we'll talk about them after we meet the Qingping sword. Come on, bring the honorable and supreme sect leader of Tongtian's sacred item, the Qingping sword. Let's admire it. After Divine Mother Wudong finished speaking, she and Lady Yin Xiao stood up from their chairs at the same time and knelt down towards the backstage. Seeing that Divine Mother Wudong and Lady Yin Xiao had knelt down, the other monsters did not dare to act rashly no matter how powerful they were. They all knelt down along with the 2 patriarchs. In an instant, all the monsters present knelt down. Only a dozen monsters carrying a sedan slowly walked out from the backstage. On this luxuriously decorated sedan sat a chubby and cute little girl who was stuffing food into her mouth. What the hell is this? F*CK. Isn't this the primordial cardinal treasure, the Qingping sword? Why is it a little girl now? That's right. She's clearly a little girl. How? Is that the Qingping sword? When the demons saw that the last primordial cardinal treasure was actually a little girl, they no longer cared about their respect. They jumped up from the ground and pointed at the little girl and shouted, "How dare you be so rude to Lord Qingping sword?" Saint Mother Wudong, who was kneeling on the platform, was enraged. A bolt of lightning struck down from her body. The first demon who stood up and pointed at the Qingping sword was instantly turned into a pile of charcoal by Divine Mother Wudong's lightning. As for the other demons who stood up, their legs trembled in fear and they knelt down again, not daring to stand up again. F*CK. One day, I actually have to kneel down in front of this adorable Qingpin. Just who is the sword bearer? And who is the master? Seeing Qingpin sitting on the sedan, Guhan said with a bitter smile. He might not be the first sword bearer to kneel to his sword lady, but to Gahan, it was definitely the first time in his life. Gahan, I see you. Why are you kneeling? Are you going to propose to Qingpin? At the same time, Qingpin, who was sitting on the sedan, found Gahan, who had turned into a demon through the connection between the sword lady and the sword bearer. He immediately asked Gahan curiously through the sword mark, "But what's with this proposal? Does this adorable thing think that kneeling means asking for a proposal? Here, let's talk about it later. Qingpin, let me ask you, what happened to you? Why are you here? How do they treat you as a primordial treasure?" Gahan asked Qingpin, and Qingpin told Gahan about his experience in detail. It turned out that Qingpin and the two little girls had a lot of fun, so the two little girls opened up to Qingpin and let down their guard. So, the two little girls brought Qingpin to the rocky beach and told Qingpin that they escaped from there. So, Qingpin touched one of the stones, and it opened the door to a different space. Qingpin and the two little girls were sucked back into the different space. When the two little girls saw that they had returned to their familiar environment, they happily ran back with Qingpin. On the way, they encountered demons. Of course, these demons would not be polite to Qingpin. One of them even wanted to whip Qingpin. Qingpin was not Gahan. She knew that she had to endure temporarily. She had a bad temper, so she slashed back with her sword and killed the demon. The killing caused a huge commotion and attracted all the monsters in the area. In the end, the Great Elder, Lady Yun Xiao, who was strolling around the area, was also attracted to her. There is probably no one in the world who was more familiar with the Qingping sword than Lady Yun Xiao. So, when the Qingping sword attacked, Lady Yun Xiao recognized the familiar sword aura and immediately stopped the other demons. In the beginning, Lady Yun Xiao wanted to speak nicely to the Qingping sword. However, the Qingping sword did not recognize Lady Yun Xiao and started fighting with her. Without Gahan by his side, the Qingping sword was no match for Yuanko's Lady Yun Xiao. It was captured by Lady Yun Xiao in just a few moves. Lady Yun Xiao did not dare to continue attacking the Qingping sword. Instead, she called Goddess Wudong over. The two of them studied the Qingping sword for a long time. After confirming that Qingpin was the Qingping sword, she immediately became extremely respectful to the Qingping sword. She even took out many things to entertain Qingpin. She treated Qingpin as if he was her ancestor. Of course, Lady Yun Xiao and Goddess Wudong also asked Qingpin sword many questions. However, Qingpin's sword, who usually looked cute but was actually very cunning, did not know anything. He only cared about eating and enjoying his life. He did not answer any of their questions. Helplessly, Lady Yun Xiao and Goddess Wudong decided to announce the Qingping sword's identity to the others. Then, they would think of a way to communicate with the Qingping sword. That was how the story happened. Gahan, what should I do now? Do you want the two of us to kill all these annoying fellows together? Poor Qing said as he looked at the demons below the stage. He did not seem to realize that these demons were his disciples and grand-disciples. Don't talk. Just sit there and do what you need to do. Eat what you need to eat. Listen to my orders. Gahan immediately instructed Qingpin. Gahan was very interested to know what would happen next. Oh, hearing Gahan's words, the poor man immediately felt relieved and began to eat the food in front of him without a care in the world. Gahan took a look and realized that the food in Qingpin's hand was a fried golden longevity fruit. Our Qingpin's appetite was indeed good. As long as it was meat, he could eat it. Translator, Atlas Studios editor. Atlas Studios, although the situation was suppressed by Goddess Wudong's decisive killing, it did not stop the demons from letting their imaginations run wild. Goddess Yin Xiao said in an extremely cold voice, "You cats and dogs can transform into humans. Why can't swords transform into humans?" Lady Qingping's sword is a connate cardinal treasure. Her foundation surpasses all of us, and her spirituality surpasses all of us. It's only natural that she can transform into a human. You don't have to be surprised. Lady Yun Xiao's explanation instantly made the demons feel enlightened. That's right, if this cow could become a demon, then it was normal for a sword to become a demon. Lord Qingping's sword, could you please transform into your true form? and let your disciples and grand disciples have a look so that they can be at ease? At the same time, Goddess Wudong knelt in front of the Qingping sword and said. The Qingping sword hesitated for a moment before nodding. Its body changed in the air and returned to the appearance of the Qingping sword. It really is Lord Qingping's sword. Seeing Qingping's sword form, Goddess Wudong and Lady Yun Xiao said excitedly. Some of the demons below the stage were even more excited. They shouted the names of the Qingping sword and the Grand Master of Heaven. They were so excited that they almost fainted. Goddess Wudong and Lady Yun Xiao had never seen Qingping's true form before. They only realized that she was the Qingping sword after sensing Qingping's sword aura. Therefore, this was also their first time seeing the true form of the Qingping sword. Before this, no matter how much the incongruence Divine Mother and Lady Yun Xiao requested, the poor sword refused to transform into a sword. Who would have thought that it would change its voice so decisively this time? This made the incongruence Divine Mother and Lady Yun Xiao overjoyed. It seemed like the Qingping sword still cared about the disciples and grand disciples of the Jia Order. Otherwise, she would not have transformed into her true form when she saw so many disciples and grand disciples kneeling down. Of course, these two important figures didn't know that the reason Qingping's sword had transformed so decisively wasn't because he cared about his disciples and grand disciples. Instead, it was because Qingping had just communicated with Guhan and obtained Guhan's permission to transform. Otherwise, even if these disciples and grand disciples knelt until dawn, they wouldn't be able to make Qingping's sword transform. What's going on here? Why are all of you here? Didn't I hear that you abandoned your master and ran away? Sister Yun Xiao, you were suppressed under the Qilin Cliff by old Lord Taishang and will never be able to rise again? Why are all of you here? The Qingping sword suddenly asked in an extremely dignified voice. Of course, it was not Qingping's sword who said it. Instead, it was Gahan who said it through Qingping's sword. Elder Qingping, please listen to our explanation. When Goddess Wudong and Lady Yun Xiao saw that the Qingping sword finally spoke, they immediately poured out their stories excitedly like beans pouring out of a bamboo tube. Chapter 1529. After the battle of the 10,000 immortal array, Master and I were outnumbered. We were besieged by the 4 shameless old thieves, and Goddess Nuwa was also an accomplice. In the end, our GS school suffered a great defeat. Tens of thousands of senior and junior brothers, as well as their disciples and grand disciples, were either killed or listed on the investiture of the gods. The most miserable ones were those who were captured by the Western sect. They actually used them as mounts, and they even castrated those poor senior and junior brothers. That's especially so for the 12 golden immortals of Chan School. Those bastards usually address us as brothers, senior brothers, and junior brothers. We didn't blame them for fighting in the myriad immortals formation. Even if we died in their hands, it was our fate. But they shouldn't have used our fellow disciples as mounts. Not only that, but they also broke the future of our fellow disciples. I hate them so much. I can't wait to kill all of them to avenge my master and my fellow disciples. But I knew that with my ability, I couldn't even deal with one of them. It was absolutely impossible to kill all of them. And at that critical moment, Master suddenly sent me a voice transmission, telling me to immediately return to Green Turing Palace and lead the remaining disciples and grand disciples in Green Turing Palace to escape, so as to prevent them from being slaughtered by those beasts. So I left the myriad immortals formation before the battle ended completely and rushed back to the Azure Palace before those beasts. However, my true form is that of a monkey. I can't compare to those immortal cranes, Kuan Pungs, and true dragons. By the time I was almost done cleaning up the Green Turing Palace, the people pursuing us had already arrived. All I could do was temporarily activate the Green Turing Palace's Dharma Protection Array. However, we were also trapped in Green Turing Palace. Although the Dharma Protection formation of the Azure Palace is very strong and only a sage like Master can control it completely, I can only control less than 10% of its power. But there are too many people coming to attack. The Dharma Protection Formation is about to be broken, and the other sages are likely to attack the Azure Palace. If that happens, we will be completely doomed. In my anxiety, I found that Master had left a brocade pouch in the back hall. He said that he had refined the fragment of the treasure-snatching rock into an alternate space that could be opened freely. As long as one entered the alternate space and sealed the door, even a sage would not be able to enter. So, I immediately brought everyone into this alternate dimension and hid until now. The story of the goddess of incongruence was over. The truth was as Gahan had guessed. These people were the remnants of Jieskul after the God Conferment War. Under the arrangement of the goddess of incongruence, they hid in this alternate dimension. Damn it! Damn it! Chan School, Ren School, and those bastards from the Western sect, they all deserve to die. They all have to die. Qing Ping suddenly roared. Her face became extremely furious, like a ferocious tiger that wanted to eat someone. After a long time, her emotions gradually calmed down. So that's how it is. Qing Pin put down the longevity fruit in his hand and looked at Yin Xiao. What about you, Yin Xiao? How did you get in? Did you also come in with the goddess of incongruence? I'm not. I'm ashamed to say it, but even now, I still haven't figured out how I got in. Yin Xiao smiled bitterly and began to narrate her experience. Back then, in the Nine Bends Yellow River Formation, the Grand Supreme Elder and the Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning bullied the weak. Their disciples could not deal with us, so in the end, they took action themselves. They took away our primordial chaos golden chalice, swallowed our golden flood dragon scissors, and even killed my poor sisters, Qiong Xiao and Bai Xiao. I was the only one who was suppressed by the Grand Supreme Elder Lord under the Qilin Cliff for an unknown number of years. I've heard of this before. However, your younger sisters, Qiong Xiao and Bai Xiao, did not die. They only ran to the heavenly courts to become two fairies. However, only you did not go on the god roll with your two sisters. Instead, you were suppressed under the Qilin Cliff and never appeared again. Qing Ping said with a hint of doubt in her eyes. However, this question was not asked by Gahan through Qing Pin, but by Qing Ping herself. Moreover, the Qilin Cliff is not the Qilin Cliff in the mortal world. It is the Qilin Cliff in the universe map, the Khanate cardinal treasure of Taishang Laojun. It said that the scroll of the universe is a dimensional world second only to the origin world, and the entire world has been refined by Taishang Laojun. Unless Taishang Laojun dies, no one can escape from the scroll of the universe. How did you get out? This is also what I'm curious about. Yin Xiao, I've already said before that I still don't know how I escaped. Yin Xiao, I was trapped under the Qilin Cliff for at least tens of thousands of years. Just when Yin Xiao was about to completely forget about the past, the universe map suddenly began to shake violently, and the entire world began to collapse. The Qilin Cliff that suppressed me was the first to collapse, and I escaped from the Qilin Cliff. However, although I left the suppression of the Qilin Cliff, I still could not escape from the universe map. Just as the world in the universe map was about to collapse, and I was about to perish with the universe map, a golden light suddenly shot out from the outside and shone on me. Suddenly, a golden light shot out from the outside and shone on my body, pulling me out of the map of heaven and earth. When I opened my eyes again, I was outside the ruins of the Bo Palace. I wandered around the ruins in a daze for a few days, and suddenly discovered the secret hidden in the treasure-snatching rock. It just so happened that I had a talisman in my body given by my master, so I directly entered this strange space and met senior sister Wudong again. Yin Xiao finished the story with a puzzled face. You're saying that you didn't escape by yourself, but someone rescued you from the map of the world. Qing Ping Sword frowned and said, That's not right. I know that the universe map and I are both Khanate cardinal treasures. Once it recognizes you as its master, unless the master dies, even a sage can't rescue you from the universe map. What? The Grand Supreme Elder is dead. Why did you only tell me now? Qing Ping Sword's expression suddenly changed, and she suddenly muttered to herself in a strange manner. Then, The murderous aura on her body disappeared in an instant, and she returned to her previous harmless and adorable appearance. I know. The poor started to work hard to eat the longevity fruit again. As he ate, he told everyone a shocking piece of news. The Grand Supreme Old Lord is already dead. The heaven and earth map has lost its master, so it is only natural for it to destroy itself. By the way, when were you released? How long have you been here? I'm not too sure about the specifics. It's been about 1,000 years. Yin Xiao looked at the Qingping sword curiously. She did not know why the other party's emotions had changed so much in such a short period of time, but she still told him everything in detail. At that time, the entire world was in chaos. A group of human refugees gathered around me, and they were being chased by some people I had never seen before. At that time, I just so happened to find a way to enter this alternate dimension, and just so happened to open the door to this alternate dimension. Those refugees also followed me in. Based on this, it seems that it has indeed been 1,000 years. It turned out that the human refugees in this dimension had all been let in by Yin Xiao. Then I understand, Qing Bin said thoughtfully, while Yin Xiao and Wu Dang were extremely curious. How could this Qingping figure out something that they had not been able to figure out in 1,000 years just by listening to a few words? Could it be that Lord Qingping knew something that no one knew about? Thinking of this, Yin Xiao and Wu Dang immediately turned their fervent gazes towards Qingping. Ancestor Qingping, what exactly do you understand? What exactly is going on? Yin Xiao could not help but ask. Humph, of course, it's because our master is mighty. He fought against 6 people alone outside. Not only did he kill the 5 sages who humiliated us in the past, but he also killed the mean, ungrateful, biased old bastard, Hong Jun, who pretended to be fair and generous. Qingpin hesitated for a while, and then announced loudly and excitedly. What he said scared the hell out of Saint Incongruence and Lady Yin Xiao. What the hell was that? How could Hong Jun ancestor, who was extremely powerful and suppressed the whole world in their impression, be killed by their master? Wasn't this a little too inconceivable? Ahem, I knew you wouldn't believe it. This is what happened. Qingpin coughed and told the 2 disciples of the tribe of Jia what happened after the God Investiture War. According to the poor man, after Sect Master Tong Tian was defeated, Hong Jun ancestor was extremely abominable. He captured Sect Master Tong Tian indiscriminately and locked him up in the Purple Cloud Palace. He wanted to punish Sect Master Tong Tian to stay in the Purple Cloud Palace until the end of the world. Sect Master Tong Tian had already accepted his fate. However, when he accidentally heard about his disciple's tragic experience, he instantly became angry and said that he wanted to go down and save his disciple. Hong Jun ancestor naturally did not agree. As a result, Sect Master Tong Tian was so angry that he fought with Hong Jun ancestor. In the beginning, Sect Master Tong Tian was definitely unable to defeat Hong Jun ancestor. Seeing that Sect Master Tong Tian was about to die in Hong Jun ancestor's hands, Sect Master Tong Tian suddenly comprehended some earth-shattering power. He risked his life and killed Hong Jun ancestor. When the other 5 sages found out, they were of course terrified. Therefore, they took the 4 fairy killing swords and prepared to kill Sect Master Tong Tian when he was seriously injured to completely calm down the chaos. However, Sect Master Tong Tian, who had an epiphany, was extremely powerful. Even though he was seriously injured, the 5 sages could only barely suppress Sect Master Tong Tian. In the end, they died together with Sect Master Tong Tian. This will also cause the whole main world and all the dimensional worlds to become chaotic. All kinds of monsters in the dimensional worlds appeared in the main world. That was what Yin Xiao saw after she escaped. Chapter 1530. In that case, the heaven and earth map collapsed because Master killed Taishang Laojun. After listening to Qing Pin's words, Lady Yin Xiao said excitedly. She finally found the answer to the question that she could not find for 1,000 years. However, Lady Yin Xiao still had another question. What was the yellow light that saved her from the heaven and earth map? It's Master. It's Master who saved you. Qingping's sword immediately patted his chest and said, after Taishang Laojun died, Master still had a breath left. He probably saw that you were trapped in the heaven and earth map, so he used the last bit of his strength to save you from the heaven and earth map. After all, Taishang Laojun was already dead at that time. It was a simple matter for Master to save you from an ownerless heaven and earth map. I see. Lady Yinxiao suddenly knelt on the ground and kowtowed a dozen times. Her eyes were filled with tears as she said, Master, I will never forget Master's great kindness. I didn't expect Master to think of saving me, even at the brink of death. I will never forget Master's love for me. I will be Master's disciple for the rest of my life. Lady Yinxiao cried as she spoke with sincerity. It could be seen that Lady Yinxiao was really in love with Master Tong Tian. When sect leader Tong Tian was at his last breath, he still wanted to save his disciple. How could Lady Yinxiao not be touched by such a deep relationship between master and disciple? Master is mighty. Master is so kind. We will never forget it. Seeing this, the incongruous Divine Mother knelt down with Mistress Yinxiao in excitement and shouted. This also became a shadow. Under the influence of Goddess Yinxiao and Goddess Wudong, all the monsters below the stage knelt down one after another. Although most of these monsters were born in this alternate space, they did not have any feelings for Tong Tian, nor would they care about Tong Tian's kindness. Some of them even deeply resented sect leader Tong Tian. After all, because of sect leader Tong Tian's failure, they were born in this alternate space and could not escape for the rest of their lives. However, they had no choice but to shout along with the others. Otherwise, they believed that the incongruous Divine Mother and Lady Yinxiao would not let these ungrateful people off. If these guys knew the truth, I don't know what would happen. Guhan sighed his heart when he saw these demons shouting, "Long live sect leader Tong Tian." The story about sect leader Tong Tian that Qing Jiu had just told them was, of course, something that Guhan had processed. In Guhan's memory, sect leader Tong Tian's Dharma power was usually red and green. Although he could use golden Dharma power, sect leader Tong Tian hated golden Dharma power. Unless it was necessary, he would not use golden Dharma power. Therefore, the person who saved Yinxiao was definitely not sect leader Tong Tian. According to Gu Han's conjecture, the truth of the matter should be like this. The one who really rescued Yinxiao from the map of the world, or in other words, released Yinxiao from the map of the world, should be Taishang Laojun. After all, Taishang Laojun's supernatural power was the real golden supernatural power, and Taishang Laojun's map of the world did not completely collapse in that battle. Instead, it was used by Taishang Laojun and the Taiji map to refine the seamless corridor, which was used to seal the remaining spirit of sect leader Tong Tian. How could it collapse and be saved by sect leader Tong Tian, who was on the verge of doomsday? At that time, the reason why the map of the world began to collapse was that Taishang Laojun wanted to use it to refine the seamless corridor with the Taiji diagram. Therefore, the map of the world itself collapsed. This process was controllable from beginning to end. It was under Taishang Laojun's control. Obviously, the reason why Yinxiao could come out of the map of the world was that Taishang Laojun let her go. He could not bear to see Yinxiao die in the map of the world, so he spared her life and gave her freedom again. However, why did he put Yinxiao back in the Aquamarine Palace? This was worth Gohan's careful consideration. According to Gohan's guess, the greatest possibility was that Taishang Laojun already knew the existence of the dimensional space. However, because he did not want to destroy the last trace of his bloodline, he let the dimensional space exist there and did not interfere with it. As for putting Yinxiao in that position, there was a possibility that Taishang Laojun hoped that Yinxiao could also enter the dimensional space and live with her senior and junior brothers. She would not get involved in the affairs of the outside world and live a stable life. Another possibility was that Taishang Laojun was secretly plotting something, and Yinxiao was a chess piece of Taishang Laojun. She was used by Taishang Laojun to plot against sect master Tong Tian. However, this was just Gohan's guess. As for the truth of the matter, Only Gohan's cheap master Taishang Laojun knew. Unfortunately, this guy was too mysterious. He had already accepted Gohan as his disciple, but he was still unwilling to tell everything to Gohan. As a result, the truth that Gohan learned from Taishang Laojun was not as much as the truth from the Saint's Relic. There was no one in the world who was more unlike his master than Taishang Laojun. Gohan, why did you make me tell such a lie? Shouldn't you have asked me to make things worse for the old master? Why are these people more respectful of old master? While Lady Yin Xiao, Matriarch Wudong, and the other monsters were crying and shouting, Lady Yin Xiao, Old Mother Wudong, and many monsters were crying and shouting. Qingpin, who could not even eat properly because of the crying and shouting, asked Gohan curiously, "Are you Qingpin or Qingping now?" Gohan did not answer Qingpin's question directly. Instead, he asked such a question. "Oh, you know," Qingpin was shocked, and his chubby little face puffed up. You can hide it from others, but how can you hide it from me? Did Qingping get rid of your control again and occupy your body?" Gohan said directly. "Yes." Qingpin nodded, puffed up his cheeks, and said, "I suppressed her for a long time, but I didn't expect her to become very emotional after hearing what happened to those monsters. I was caught off guard, and she took control of my body again. But it doesn't matter. I have suppressed her, and she will definitely be more vigilant this time." "Well, then I'll answer your question just now. You asked me why I didn't say bad things about sect leader Tong Tian, because I know it's useless to say bad things about sect leader Tong Tian. Be it Goddess Wudong or Yin Xiao, they're the most loyal disciples of sect leader Tong Tian. They won't accept sect leader Tong Tian's bad words. Instead, they might even doubt your identity. You'd better go along with their emotions and say more good things about sect leader Tong Tian. Describe sect leader Tong Tian in a way that they like. In this way, they will think that you're the same kind of person, and you can get more useful information from them. Most importantly, I have a feeling that sect leader Tong Tian will definitely return here. I'm going to set up an ambush for him here. So these monsters must become more loyal to sect leader Tong Tian. In this way, sect leader Tong Tian will let down his guard, and I'll be able to prepare a fatal blow to sect leader Tong Tian." Gohan said faintly, but the deep killing intent in his words made Qingpin shudder, and his whole body began to tremble. "What's wrong?" Seeing that Qingpin's body was a little strange, Gohan squinted his eyes and asked, "Nothing. The Qingping in my body heard that you're going to kill the old master, so she became emotional again. But it doesn't matter. I can suppress her." Qingpin said reluctantly, "Don't force yourself. If you can't do it, I will return you to my sword. With the suppression of my sword essence, it's impossible for Qingping to escape." Gohan said faintly, "No need. I can definitely suppress her." Qingpin's face turned red, and then his body gradually began to calm down. Holy Mother Wudong and Mistress Yin Xiao shouted for a long time before their emotions gradually calmed down. Seeing that the two of them had calmed down, the other demons heaved a sigh of relief and gradually calmed down. Holy Mother Wudong and Mistress Yin Xiao spoke a few more words to Qingping, confirming her identity even more. They also became more and more respectful towards Qingping. Coincidentally, at this moment, a demon suddenly walked to Holy Mother Wudong's side and whispered into her ears. Holy Mother Wudong's face bloomed with a cold smile, and she said to Qingping, "Ancestor Qingping, there's going to be a good show next. I wonder if Ancestor is willing to go with us to watch." "What show?" Qingping asked curiously. "It's like this." Holy Mother Wudong laughed. "Those human slaves outside were originally used by us to capture longevity fruit. Occasionally, we would kill some of them to make a sumptuous meal, but they aren't anything valuable. I've never counted the number. If it wasn't for Mistress Yin Xiao suddenly telling me that the number of humans outside seemed to be fewer, I wouldn't have realized that the number of humans in this alternate dimension had actually decreased by half. Thus, I sent some invisible demons to mix in with these humans. In the end, I found out that someone had actually opened a path outside and led these humans to escape. The two children who brought you here were originally two of the last batch of humans who escaped. In the end, I don't know how they brought you back, but that's quite strange. Just based on this point, I originally wanted to kill Master, but on account of the merit of bringing you back, I spared their lives. However, it said that these humans outside are going to steal people again today. I plan to bring some people to ambush them, and then follow their path out. Since they stole 100 of our slaves, then we will capture all of those humans as slaves and offer them to Master as sacrifices. Offer them to Master, haha. Chapter 1531. Why haven't the two people from Yuzhong arrived as promised? In an extremely secluded cave in the alternate dimension, there were nearly 100 humans curled up on both sides of the cave. In the entire cave, there was only one well-dressed person, and that person was Amakusa Ichiro. However, Amakusa Ichiro was feeling uneasy. According to the agreement, the two people from Yuzhong should have arrived at this cave by now. But why hadn't they appeared yet? Could it be that these two people stood me up? Ichiro Amakusa guessed, but he quickly dismissed the idea. Impossible. Amakusa Ichiro muttered to himself. Those two people entered this place by mistake. Without our guidance, they won't be able to leave this place. In order to escape, they will definitely come here on time. Just as Amakusa Ichiro was feeling troubled, a door suddenly opened in the cave. This door was not the dimensional door that Gahan and Amakusa Ichiro used to enter. Instead, the inner wall of the cave was pulled open, and two human swordsmen walked out from the other side of the door. It seemed that this door was connected to a secret passage inside the mountain. Is everyone here this time? The governor is waiting for us. The two people immediately said as soon as they entered the cave. All the natives here are here, a total of 100 people. Amakusa Ichiro nodded. Very well, let's not waste any more time. Since everyone is here, let's leave now. The other two people in charge of receiving them said hurriedly. At the same time, they began to call for the natives in the cave to evacuate through the secret passage. Brothers, wait, there's still two people not here. Amakusa Ichiro said through gritted teeth. What do you mean there are still two people? We just counted. There are indeed 100 natives here. No more, no less. Why are there two people missing? The two newcomers said in confusion. It's like this. I actually met two people from Yuzhong here. So, Amakusa Ichiro told the two newcomers about his encounter, and the two newcomers immediately fell into a state of shock. They didn't expect to be discovered by a second group of people here. This was too much of a coincidence. However, the other party was a human, so there shouldn't be any big problems. Did you really set up a time and place with them and told them to meet here? The two new sword-bearers confirmed. I'm sure. How could I forget to tell them these things? Ichiro Amakusa said helplessly. Not good. We might have been exposed. A new sword wielder's expression changed drastically. Those two humans have probably been captured by demons. Those demons are strange and bizarre. I heard from the city lord that those monsters are extremely powerful. They might even have a method to search souls. If the two sword bearers are exposed, I'm afraid our operation will be exposed as well. F*CK. Hearing this person's words, Amakusa Ichiro instantly understood. That's right. These two people were most likely captured by the monsters, and there was a high possibility that they would be exposed. Go, everyone go now, don't stay. Thinking of this, Amakusa Ichiro did not dare to delay any longer. He immediately urged the humans on the ground to enter the secret passage. At this moment, two golden balls of light instantly shot into the cave. More than a dozen humans were caught off guard and were directly strangled by these balls of light. More monsters rushed in after the balls of light. We're really exposed. Seeing the monsters swarming in, Amakusa Ichiro understood what was going on. He gritted his teeth and said fiercely, "Those two people from Yuzhong, why did I tell them where to gather? They are useless." At this time, Amakusa Ichiro regretted his carelessness. At that time, he thought that if he, a sword-bearer, could enter and exit the city of monsters freely, the two sword-bearers of famed swords should also be very safe. So, without thinking too much, he told them the truth. However, He did not expect that the two people from Yuzhong would be so stupid that they would be caught by these monsters. Thinking of it now, Amakusa Ichiro really regretted it. Amakusa Ichiro had never suspected that the two people from Yuzhong would betray them. After all, except for Mingyuan Jiandi, there was almost no example of a sword-bearer betraying them. The survival of the race forced everyone to unite. Therefore, Amakusa Ichiro believed that the two people from Yuzhong would not betray them on their own. The biggest possibility was that they had been caught by the monsters. "Brothers, what should we do now?" Amakusa Ichiro looked at the monsters rushing out of the cave entrance, then looked at the 50 to 60 indigenous people who had not entered the secret passage, and asked the other two sword-bearers anxiously, "What else can we do? These are our compatriots of the Yamato people. We must never abandon them." The leading sword-bearer gritted his teeth and said, "We'll stay here and fight desperately until all the Yamato people escape. Don't worry, I think these monsters are at most at the Dragon Realm. We can hold them off." The other two nodded at the words of the leading sword-bearer. The three of them released their sword maidens and fought with the monsters near the entrance of the cave. They tried their best to buy time so that the remaining indigenous people could escape through the secret passage. I wonder which sect these humans are from. All of them have immortal swords with sword spirits. They can even transform immortal swords into human forms. This sect is really powerful. Seeing the three sword-bearers transform their swords into sword maidens, Incongruent's Divine Mother and Cloudy Sky were shocked. They could not help but be shocked by the three human strength. In the primeval age, only those perfected immortals with extremely profound cultivation could transform the celestial sword into a human form and fight with the spirituality in the celestial sword. Be it cultivation or the celestial sword, they were one in a million. In the entire GS school, there were less than 20 people who could do this. All of them were the backbone of the GS school. Even Goddess Wudong and Lady Yun Xiao might not be a match for these 20 people. Therefore, when they saw the three humans transform into human forms, the two sword-bearers were really afraid. Only God knew how powerful the humans outside were. If there were 20 more of them, the entire alternate dimension would be completely destroyed. Chapter 1532. No, these three sword immortals are strange. Their human forms are too weak. Also, why didn't they join the battle themselves? Instead, they hid behind their immortal swords? At first, the Incongruent's Divine Mother and Lady Yun Xiao were shocked by the three sword-wielding men. However, after observing them closely, the two of them realized that something was wrong. If they were really sword immortals from the primeval era, the sword's human form was just an interesting supplementary attack. The sword immortals' real combat power was actually the sword immortals themselves. They could only unleash their true combat power when they held the sword in their hands or fought with the sword. However, the three humans in front of them were hiding at the back. They did not look like they had powerful combat power. Instead, they looked like they needed to rely on the sword's human form for protection. Senior Sister Wudong, it seems like the outside world has changed a lot. Something must have happened that we don't know about. These three people are definitely not real sword immortals. Lady Yin Xiao frowned and said, "Also, we can't drag this on any longer. Most of the natives have already escaped. If we continue fighting like this, I'm afraid they'll all run away." "Then what do you want?" Goddess Wudong squinted her eyes and asked, "Let the four-wind immortals fight." Lady Yun Xiao answered, "Let the four of them fight? Aren't you overestimating these three?" Goddess Wudong said in disdain, "It's fine. Let's end this quickly." Lady Yun Xiao smiled. "Okay." Divine Mother Wudong nodded. She turned around and gave a few orders with a deep voice. Then, four ugly monsters with different heads strode out from the group behind her and rushed into the cave. These four monsters had a tiger head, a lion head, a leopard head, and a white wolf head respectively. Because they had mastered different wind spells, they gathered together and were called the Four Wind Immortals. The tiger head was the East Wind Immortal, the lion head was the North Wind Immortal, the leopard head was the South Wind Immortal, and the white wolf head was the North Wind Immortal. These four people were all third-generation disciples of the tribe of Severity. During the War of Investiture of Gods, they had already gained some fame in the tribe of Severity. Later on, they followed sect leader Tong Tian to participate in the innumerable immortal array battle and even escaped with sect leader Tong Tian. They were one of the last 300 disciples of sect leader Tong Tian. When ancestor Hong Jun appeared to block Tong Tian, the four of them were quick-witted and escaped to the Aquamarine Palace in advance to report the news. Finally, they hid in this alternate dimension with Divine Mother Wudong. From this, it could be seen that these four monsters were already experts before the myriad immortal array. Now that hundreds of thousands of years had passed, their abilities had naturally become even more powerful. To be more specific, these four monsters were probably at the level of the meteor realm Yuan Ko. Therefore, when the four demons attacked, the three sword-bearers who were initially evenly matched with the demons in front of them could not hold on any longer. The four demons merely blew a mouthful of immortal chi, and the three sword ladies were on the verge of collapse. They couldn't even brandish their swords. As for the three sword-bearers, they were instantly blown away and slammed heavily into the mountain wall. If it weren't for the protection of their close-fitting shields, they would have been smashed into a pile of minced meat. They are indeed very fragile. They are not sword immortals at all. Divine Mother Wudong said resentfully when she saw this scene. She was actually fooled by these three little guys. It was really embarrassing. Big brother, I'm afraid the three of us are going to die here, Ichiro Amakusa said to the other two with a wry smile. At first, when they found that they were evenly matched with the demons, they were relieved, thinking that they still had a great chance of escaping this time. However, it wasn't until the four immortals of wind attacked at the same time that they were directly blown away that they realized that the four enemies were actually all meteor realm Yuan Ko, which was equivalent to the human spirit sword realm swordbearers. Only then did they realize that the real powerhouses of the enemy had not even made a move. Once they made a move, they were destined to die. The three sword-bearers knew very well that it was impossible for them to defeat four Meteor Realm Yuan Ko with just one famed sword-level sword-bearer and two treasure sword-level sword-bearers. Therefore, they were left with only death. Big brother, you're a famed sword-level sword-bearer. You're more important to our Yamato city. Escape first, we'll buy you some time. Ichiro Amakusa struggled to stand up from the ground. As he spat out a mouthful of blood, he said to the famed sword-level sword-bearer, How can I abandon you all? The famed sword-level sword-bearer immediately refused. Big brother, now is not the time for pleasantries. If no one is there to open the door for these natives, they will all die. Let us buy you some last bit of time. Amakusa Ichiro suddenly pushed the body of the famed sword-rank swordsman into the secret passage, then kicked the last few natives who were left outside into the passage as well. Then, he and the other sword-rank swordsmen led the last two sword maidens to block the entrance of the secret passage. It was obvious that they were using their own lives to buy time. Idiots. So what if you can buy me some time? I don't need a single breath to catch up to those humans. The incongruous Divine Mother sneered, and then gave the four immortals of wind a look, signaling them to end the battle quickly. Yes, the four immortals of wind immediately understood and took out their respective magic treasures from their waists. They poured all their demonic power into the treasures and waved them. For extremely violent gusts of wind rushed towards Ichiro Amakusa and the Sacred Mother of Wind. Goodbye, this damned world. Seeing the four gusts of wind, Ichiro Amakusa and the Sacred Mother of Wind knew that it was impossible for them to escape. They were about to die in this alternate dimension together with their sword ladies and be torn to pieces by the four gusts of wind. So, the two of them closed their eyes and prepared for the moment of their death. It's too early to wait for death. After waiting for a while, the two of them realized that they didn't seem to have died. Then, a familiar voice sounded in their ears. They immediately raised their heads and saw a man and a woman standing in front of them with their sword mistresses. The two of you are finally here. Ichiro Amakusa cried tears of joy when he saw the two of them. I'm sorry. We were delayed by some matters and came a little late. Gahan, who had slightly disguised himself, said cheerfully. His cheerful voice instantly calmed Ichiro Amakusa and the Sacred Mother of Wind. Although the two of them did not know Gahan at all, it was as if everything would be fine as long as Gahan was here. Well, now is not the time for us to catch up. You two escape through the secret passage first. We will cover for you, Song Yifei said quickly. At the same time, he was struggling to resist the attack of the four immortals of wind. No, you are here to save us. How can we let you fight here? Hurry up and leave. We will cover for you, Ichiro Amakusa said. What's with all this nonsense? Gahan was getting impatient. He kicked the two of them on their butts and sent them back into the secret passage. At the same time, he began to slowly retreat into the secret passage. Damn it! Just when Gahan and Song Yifei were about to leave, a cold snort suddenly sounded in the cave. Then, two silver-white lights instantly pierced the chest of Gahan and Song Yifei. Block it! Gahan and Song Yifei used all their strength to block it. Both of them were hit and spat out blood at the same time. However, they still managed to catch the silver-white light. Then, they took advantage of this moment to sneak into the secret passage. What? These two humans actually caught my heavenly light. Lady Yinxiao looked at her own hands and said in disbelief, Yinxiao, now is not the time to be in a daze. Let's go. Incongruence Divine Mother scolded and followed Lady Yinxiao into the secret passage. Chapter 1533. When the desolate level Yuan co-chased after someone, his power was naturally extraordinary. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that if the Incongruence Divine Mother and Lady Yunxiao were to give their all, the entire hill would be flattened by them in less than a second. The human hiding in the secret passage would naturally die. However, Goddess Wudong and Queen Yunxiao did not dare to do that. The reason was simple. This was an alternate space, one that was pieced together by various pieces. There was a huge limitation to such an alternate space, which was that the space itself was extremely unstable. If there was an overly intense battle in the space, such as flattening a hill, the alternate space itself would be greatly damaged. Hence, the alternate space might be destroyed as well. With Goddess Wudong and Queen Yunxiao's abilities, it would be easy for them to escape if the alternate space was destroyed. However, the problem was that the disciples of the Jie School would not be able to escape from the alternate space. It would most likely be destroyed along with the alternate space. This was something that Goddess Wudong and Queen Yunxiao definitely did not want to see and could not accept. Hence, after thinking for a while, they finally decided to chase after the enemies with their physical bodies. They would only use a small area of power to capture the humans alive or kill them directly. Yifei, escape with them. I'll stay here and block these two women. Gahan said to Song Yifei when he saw Queen Yunxiao and Goddess Wudong chasing after them. On the surface, he was telling Song Yifei that he hoped that Song Yifei could protect the others. But in reality, Gahan was afraid that the battle between him and the two experts would affect Song Yifei. With Song Yifei's current abilities, he might be seriously injured in the battle. Hence, Gahan could only send Song Yifei away in advance, leaving him to block the Incongruence Divine Mother and Lady Yunxiao alone. Human, just give up. I swear in the name of the Jie School that as long as you cooperate with us, I can spare your life. Queen Yunxiao said indifferently when she saw Gahan blocking in front of her. What's with all the nonsense? Let's do it. Gahan took out the Qi Dian sword in his hand. Initially, it would have been better to use the 4 fairy-slaying swords and the Xinyuan sword. However, the problem was that he believed that Mistress Yunxiao and the Incongruence Divine Mother would recognize these 5 swords. Hence, he decided to only use the Qi Dian sword to fight. Anyway, in terms of material, the starting point sword was definitely made with the material of an Emperor's Sword level sword lady. It would not be at a disadvantage in terms of weapons. How foolish. Go to hell then. The Incongruence Saint Mother was infuriated by this human who didn't know what was good for him. She was kind enough to spare his life, but she didn't expect this human to be so ungrateful. Since that was the case, the incongruence Divine Mother made up her mind to kill this damned human. After all, there were still 3 or 4 living people behind her. When the time came, all she needed to do was to leave one alive and ask about the outside world. As she didn't take Guhan seriously from the beginning, the incongruence Divine Mother attacked rather casually. She didn't even use any specific technique. She just condensed a huge gust of goblin power and smashed it directly at Guhan's head, planning to blast Guhan into minced meat. However, one shouldn't underestimate this goblin power. Although she didn't use any techniques, the dense goblin power itself was the strongest demonic technique. The reason why monsters created all sorts of demonic techniques was that they didn't have enough goblin power themselves. They needed demonic techniques to cause greater damage. However, if the goblin power itself was extremely dense, then in terms of lethality, a huge gust of goblin power would definitely surpass demonic techniques of the same level. The incongruence Divine Mother had been cooped up in this alternate space for hundreds of thousands of years. Apart from cultivating goblin power and splitting consciousness fragments, there was nothing else she could do. Her goblin power had already reached an extremely dense level. When this gust of goblin power smashed down, it was roughly equivalent to the full power of an immortal sword-level swordsman. As long as it landed on any spiritual sword-level swordsman, this swordsman wouldn't be able to survive. Unfortunately, Guhan wasn't a spiritual sword-level swordsman. Currently, Guhan was already a genuine Jiandi. However, in order to hide his true strength, Guhan still pretended to be strenuous to resist. After withstanding the gust of goblin power, he broke into a run and fled. This human is quite capable. He actually withstood it. Ever since Emperor Huang Xinyuan, there hasn't been such a powerful human in a long time. Seeing that Guhan actually withstood her goblin power, the incongruence Divine Mother said in shock. Although the protagonists of the Great War of Deification of the Gods back then were humans, they were actually just the fuse to push the plot forward. The ones who really fought were the disciples of the Jie school and the other 3 schools. The strongest among the humans was just like Jiang Zia, who relied on the god-striking whip and the deification list to intimidate others. Without these 2 things, the incongruence Divine Mother was confident that with a gust of goblin power, Jiang Zia would be turned into ashes on the spot. His performance would definitely not be as strong as the human in front of her. Junior Sister Wudong is a little too soft-hearted after all. Lady Yun Xiao smiled. When we catch up to him again, Junior Sister Wudong, don't go easy on him again. Of course, this brat won't be able to escape again. The incongruence Divine Mother said hatefully. The 2 of them chased after him again. Not long after, they found Guhan, who was running for his life. At the same time, they also saw the exit of the secret passage. It was a cave entrance that was glowing with white light. A large number of humans and aborigines were leaving the mountain through the cave entrance. Damn it, there's a crack entrance there. We actually didn't know about it. Seeing the exit, the incongruence Divine Mother was shocked. At first, they thought that the reason why the humans came in was because they mastered the spells of Jie school. In the end, they found out that there was a crack entrance in the alternate space. The entrance was actually hidden deep inside the mountain. That was why the incongruence Divine Mother and the rest had never discovered it. They only realized it today. Junior Sister, this is great news. Seeing the entrance, Lady Yun Xiao smiled in surprise. We've always been worried that opening the seal from the inside would destroy the entire alternate space. Now that there's a naturally formed crack entrance, we can enter and exit the outside world freely. Isn't this great news? That's right. That's great news. Hearing that, the incongruence Divine Mother cried out in surprise. However, she did not relax her grip. More than 10 streams of monster power instantly smashed towards the natives who had yet to escape. She planned to kill these damned humans first. Hurry up and run. Guhan roared and once again blocked in front of the incongruence Divine Mother. However, this time, Guhan could only use his personal shield to block the attack. In the end, he was hit by the incongruence Divine Mother and spat out 4 to 5 mouthfuls of blood. He felt terrible. Damned little B asterisk starred. You actually blocked my good news again. The incongruence Divine Mother stomped her feet in anger. While Guhan used his life to block the attack, the remaining aborigines had already escaped. Only the sword bearers were left in the cave. Don't even think about leaving. Lady Yin Xiao could not stand it anymore. Her snow-white sleeves suddenly grew out like 2 long snakes and coiled around the waists of the remaining human sword-bearers. She wanted to keep these humans in the cave. Hurry up and leave. Guhan roared again. Then, a few sword lights flashed, and Lady Yin Xiao's sleeves were all cut off by Guhan. The remaining sword-bearers seized the opportunity to escape. Little B asterisk starred, I'm going to skin you alive. Seeing that most of her prey had escaped, the incongruence Divine Mother's anger towards Guhan was at its peak. This time, she did not hold back anymore. She took out a pyramid-like object and threw it at Guhan. The pyramid grew at an extremely fast speed. In the end, it became the size of a small mountain and smashed towards Guhan. Just you wait, I'll be back. Guhan continued to roar. Then, Little 3 smashed onto Guhan's body. Seeing that Guhan was about to be crushed under the mountain, Guhan nimbly tapped the ground with his sword and changed the direction of his body. Instead, he used the momentum of the small mountain to fly out of the cave. Damn! The incongruence Divine Mother's face froze. Could this human be a loach? He actually managed to escape from me time and time again. Junior sister, don't panic. They just escaped from this world. When we get out of here, we can. Before Lady Yin Xiao could finish her sentence, her entire body stiffened. That was because Lady Yin Xiao had also arrived outside the cave. However, she did not leave through the cave. Instead, she was blocked by the cave as if there was an invisible barrier. What's going on? Senior sister, why don't you leave? Seeing Lady Yin Xiao's reaction, the incongruence Divine Mother asked curiously. It's not that I don't want to leave. Master won't let me leave. Lady Yin Xiao replied with a bitter smile. The incongruence Divine Mother was even more confused. However, the incongruence Divine Mother soon figured out what was going on. When she sensed the barrier at the exit, she was shocked to find that there was a consciousness fragment left behind by the sect leader of Tongtian at the exit. There was only one message in this consciousness fragment. The sect leader of Tongtian told his disciples that he would return one day. Before he returned, all of his disciples had to stay in this alternate space obediently and were not allowed to leave. Otherwise, they would be punished according to the sect rules. Sigh, I didn't expect it to be all for naught in the end. We still can't leave this place. After knowing the consciousness left by the sect leader of Tongtian, the incongruence Divine Mother said dejectedly, although she could leave this damn place as long as she took a step forward at this moment. However, she had no choice but to retreat obediently because of the consciousness fragment left behind by the sect leader of Tongtian. She did not dare to take a step forward. However, this is also a good thing. He wants to tell us that Master is not dead. He will definitely return. Compared to the incongruence Divine Mother's dejection, Lady Yin Xiao said with a smile. Chapter 1534. Brother Gufan, the 3 of us will never forget your and your wife's great kindness. If you and your wife need any errands in this lifetime, as long as you and your wife say the word, we will go through water and tread on fire without hesitation. After escaping from the dimensional rift, the 3 swordsmen immediately knelt in front of Flowing Time Maple and thanked him gratefully. Sigh, cough, cough. That's... Cough, cough. That's too much. We're all humans. Cough, cough. Of course. Cough, cough. We should support each other. Cough, cough. Guhan kept coughing out blood as he spoke. This scene made the 3 swordsmen even more grateful. They almost swore to the heavens that they would be Guhan's son for the rest of their lives. That's strange. Why aren't those 2 monsters chasing after us? One of the swordsmen asked curiously when he saw that there was no reaction from the dimensional rift and that there were no monsters chasing after them. Cough, cough. Who knows? Cough, cough. Perhaps they can't leave that place, Gohan said while coughing. However, he knew the reason why goddess incongruence and Lady Yunxiao did not chase after them. This was because he had seen the consciousness fragment left behind by the sect master in the dimensional rift. Therefore, Gohan knew that these two monsters, who respected his master very much, would never go against his master's will. It was just like how Lisihua would never go against his master's will. However, the sect master of Tong Tian has indeed been resurrected. That consciousness fragment was clearly left there not long ago. At the same time, Gohan also sensed that the consciousness fragment was very fresh. It did not seem like a consciousness fragment left behind from thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years ago. The sect master of Tong Tian must have been here before and might have even wandered around this exit. However, for some unknown reason, the sect master of Tong Tian did not enter the alternate dimension. He only left behind this consciousness fragment to warn his disciple not to leave through this place. Brother Gu Fan, hurry up and enter the medical pod to recuperate. Otherwise, your body will become even worse. Seeing that Gohan was still coughing out blood, Amakusa Ichiro tried to persuade him worriedly. No. Gohan shook his head in pain. Although we just escaped from the monster's territory, this is still Yuan Ko's territory. If another powerful Yuan Ko came looking for them, they would be finished. Moreover, you have to send these ordinary people to Yanjing City, which is thousands of miles away. It goes without saying that the journey will be difficult and arduous. If I stay in a medical cabin, I might die there. It's better to fight side by side with you. That way, the odds of success will be higher. Brother Gufan, you don't have to worry about this. The nearby Yuan Ko won't hurt us, and we've built a city nearby. As long as we send these people into the city, they'll be safe. It'll take less than 10 minutes. Ichiro Amakusa said quickly. Amakusa, hearing Amakusa Ichiro speak the truth, the swordsman beside him glared at Amakusa Ichiro. Big brother, Brother Gufan doesn't want to risk his life to save us. Even if our Yamato city is exposed, I don't care. At worst, I'll just return Brother Gufan's life. Amakusa Ichiro said firmly. When the other two sword-bearers heard Amakusa Ichiro's words, they immediately fell silent. Gohan had saved Amakusa Ichiro's life, and so had they. What Yamato city? What are you talking about? Why don't I understand? Gohan, who looked weak, asked strangely. Brother Gufan, don't worry about it. Take a good rest in the medical pod. When you reach our Yamato city, you'll know everything. Amakusa Ichiro sighed and forced Gohan into the medical pod with Song Yifei. Seeing that the red light for treatment had lit up, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. They carried Gohan's medical pod and began to move in a certain direction. Just as Amakusa Ichiro had said, after walking for less than 10 minutes, they found a city in front of them. Rather than calling it a city, it was more like a lively village. There was not even a proper city wall around it, only a wall made of wood that was 7 or 8 meters high. This wooden wall was probably used to prevent humans from walking out of the village, not to prevent Yuan Ko from attacking from the outside. When they arrived at the entrance of the village, the gate of the village began to open slowly. A man wearing the traditional samurai robe of the Yamato people stood at the gate, welcoming the people who were returning. Wuzhong Shiho, aren't you already dead? Seeing this man, Song Yifei was so shocked that his hands loosened and he almost dropped the medical cabin that was filled with a solid cold. Why is there an outsider here? Wushang Shifeng was also taken aback by Song Yifei's appearance. Ichiro Amakusa lowered his head and briefly told Wushang Shifeng what had just happened. So, it was you two who saved my disciples. I am Wuzhong Shiho. Thank you both. After listening to Amakusa Ichiro's story, Wuzhong Shiho bowed deeply to Song Yifei and Gohan, who was in the medical pod. Sword Sage Wuzhong, you are too polite. Sword Sage Wuzhong, why are you here? Didn't you already? Song Yifei could not wait to ask about it, but Wuzhong Shiho waved his hand and smiled. You two, this is not a suitable place to talk. Why don't you follow me to the sword committee? I will naturally answer your questions. Wuzhang Shiho said calmly. Forget it. We still have to go back to Yanjing City to report on the mission. Goodbye. Song Yifei stepped back, picked up the medical pod, and was ready to leave this place. Sai, you're our guests. You can take a rest before you leave. As soon as Wuzhang Shiho's voice fell, 3 or 4 famed swordsmen came out from behind and blocked Song Yifei's way out. Because Song Yifei was playing the role of a famed swordsman, of course, he was no match for 3 or 4 people. He could only stand there angrily and look at Sword Sage Wuzhang. After all, he had to put on a good show. Don't worry, no matter how much a jerk I am, I will not hurt my compatriots. Let's just have a chat. Wuzhang Shiho said again. This time, Song Yifei finally did not want to retreat. Instead, he obediently followed Wuzhang Shiho and entered the sword committee. I've been wanting to ask just now. Miss, you look very familiar, and you even recognize me at a glance. May I ask if we have met before? Perhaps we used to be friends? After carefully looking at Song Yifei, Wuzhang Shifang couldn't help but ask curiously. My name is Song Yifei, and I do not have the fate to meet Sword Sage Wuzhang. As for how I know you, Sword Sage Wuzhang is famous all over the world. Who doesn't know him? What's so strange about me knowing him? Song Yifei said in annoyance. Song Yifei, what a familiar name. I feel like I have heard it somewhere before. When Wuzhang Shiho heard Song Yifei's name, he fell into deep thought. After thinking for 5 or 6 minutes, Wuzhang Shiho finally seemed to remember something and asked, Miss Song Yifei is Yuzhong City swordsman, Baiju's Sword Sage's disciple. She is also Hong Jun's Sword Sage Gahan and Shihua Sword Sage Lu Shihua, as well as Frost Jindi and Liunian Ling. This guy actually remembers me. Hearing Wuzhang Shiho directly read out his identity, Song Yifei was really shocked. Because he had been missing for more than 20 years, Song Yifei had always thought that the whole world had almost forgotten him. Unexpectedly, Wuzhang Shifang, a dignified sword wielder of the immortal sword grade, actually remembered his name and remembered his identity. This was really a little too surprising. Behind him, Amakusa Ichiro was also shocked. He did not expect Song Yifei's identity to be so amazing. He did not expect that Song Yifei's identity would be so great that he was related to so many big shots. He really met someone with a big background. Haha, a wrong decision back then caused a lasting regret. If I had let go of my pride and arrogance, then Hong Jun Sword Sage would have been my disciple. Every time I think of this, I regret it. In addition, Hong Jun Sword Sage is a genius, unparalleled in the world, so I naturally pay special attention to him. I also know a little more about the people and friend around him, so I remember the name Song Yifei. Wuzhang Shiho said with a long sigh. He did not expect that it was because of Gu Han again. By the way, Miss Song Yifei seems to have disappeared all traces 20 years ago. Even when I left Yanjing City 7 years ago, there was no news of Miss Song Yifei. If I did not see Miss Song Yifei with my own eyes today, I would have thought that Miss Song Yifei has... You think I'm already dead, right? Song Yifei rolled his eyes at Wuzhang Shiho. Sorry, not only did I not die, but I also came back to life. Haha, Miss Song Yifei is really a sentimental person. But don't vent your anger on me. Naturally, you have to find someone to vent your anger on. I don't want to be wronged. Wuzhang Shiho laughed. Then explain your matter first. Song Yifei said coldly. What do you want me to explain? Wuzhang Shiho asked. You, a guy who's been dead in the official records for 7 years, is actually standing in front of me alive. Shouldn't you give me a good explanation? Song Yifei snorted and asked. Don't worry, I will explain it. But Miss Song Yifei, please explain who is in this medical cabin. It is the good guy that I have hated for 20 years, Sword Sage Hong Jun. Wuzhang Shifang snorted coldly. More than a dozen sword chi burst out in an instant, and the cover of the medical bay was cracked in an instant. A large amount of aquamarine restoration fluid gushed out of the medical bay. A figure appeared behind Wuzhang Shifang and said with a smile, Senior Wuzhang, long time no see. Chapter 1535. My little friend Gahan, it's really you. When Gahan really appeared in front of Wuzhong Shifeng, Wuzhong Shifeng looked at the guy in front of him with a complicated gaze. This little guy, who had knelt in front of him and wanted to worship him as a teacher, but he had casually found a reason to reject him, was now standing proudly in front of him. At this time, he was standing at the peak of human beings and had become an Emperor Sword-level sword wielder. Even peerless masters like Ing Zheng and 12 Zhu Wu had died in his hands. In front of him, Wuzhong Shifeng was probably not even worth a finger. Thinking of this, Wuzhong Shifeng began to regret again. Why had he been such a jerk, so reserved, so indifferent? If he had accepted Gahan as a disciple, then his long-cherished wish of many years would have been realized now. Senior Wuzhong, 20 years have passed, but your body is still so handsome, Gahan said with a smile. Indeed, although they had been separated for 20 years, Wuzhong Shifeng still looked the same as he did 20 years ago. He still maintained the appearance of a middle-aged man. Unlike Long Shi Jindi, 20 years ago, Long Shi Jindi also looked like a middle-aged man in his prime, but 20 years later, he had become an old man. Now, he had ascended to become an immortal and had disappeared with the passage of time. Just what kind of method did this Wuzhong Shifeng use to be able to maintain his appearance and spirit without any change after 20 years? I am ashamed. When Wuzhong Shifeng heard Gahan say this, his face stiffened, and at the same time, he showed an ashamed expression. He lowered his head and said, I am sorry to human beings. I am sorry to the human race. What do you mean? You, Wuzhong Shifeng, are a senior of human beings. You have shed your blood for human beings, and you have made great achievements in war. Even if you hide here now, your blemishes do not obscure your brilliance. You don't have to be sorry to human beings. Although Gahan was praising Wuzhong Shifeng, his tone was very calm. Fine, a straightforward person will not resort to insinuations. Since little friend Gahan and little friend Yifei are here, I have nothing to hide. The reason why I don't look old is not because I'm good at taking care of myself, but because I'm no longer a human being. Wuzhong Shifeng sighed and said something that shocked Song Yifei to his core. Wuzhong Shifeng actually said that he's no longer a human? What does that mean? Could it be that this Wuzhong Shifeng is the same as my master? Song Yifei suddenly raised his head and looked at Wuzhong Shifeng. Then, he looked at Gahan, who had a calm expression, and finally understood something. Sigh, looks like Senior Wuzhong has also reached this step. Gahan sighed. In fact, Gahan already knew what had happened to Wu Zhangshi the moment he laid eyes on him. This was because Wu Zhangshi was now like him and Mingyuan Jindi. His body had been contaminated by filth, and he had become half Yuan Ko and half a human being. However, this Wuzhong Shifeng could actually live peacefully with other human beings, which surprised Gahan quite a bit. This was because Gahan knew very well how terrifying filth was and how horribly it could corrode the will of human beings. Gahan relied on his willpower to resist the corruption of the impurities, and the Netheriris Sword Emperor relied on the black crystal to resist the corruption of the impurities. So what did Wu Zhangfeng rely on to resist the impurities? Also, what had happened to this Wuzhong Shifeng that made him fall into the same situation as him? Little friend Gahan knows what happened to my lower body. Wuzhong Shifeng was also shocked by Gahan's words. From the meaning behind Gahan's words, it seemed like Gahan already knew what had happened to his body. Aren't you already corroded by filth? Gahan said faintly. You actually know. Wuzhong Shifeng widened his eyes and exclaimed in admiration. Then, he helplessly withdrew his hand. Little friend Gahan, you are right. I have indeed been corroded by filth. I am now just a monster that is half human and half Yuan Ko. What exactly happened to your body? How did you end up like this? Gahan immediately asked. Little friend Gahan, since you know about my body's condition, you should also know that I will only be corroded by filth if I enter the main world through a dimensional rift in another dimension. Right? Wuzhong Shifeng said faintly. I already know about this. Gahan nodded and said, So, Senior Wuzhong, you mistakenly entered a dimensional world and were corroded by filth in order to return to the main world. Yes and no. Wu Zhang Shifeng nodded and then shook his head. I did enter a dimensional world, but I didn't enter it by mistake. I entered on my own initiative. I took the initiative to become like this. Wu Zhang Shifeng said frankly. Wu Zhang Shifeng actually entered a dimensional world on his own initiative. Gohan raised his head in disbelief and looked at the frank Wu Zhang Shifeng. His heart surged with great confusion. Although Gohan's situation was the same as Wu Zhang Shifeng's, Gohan had been forced to become like this. He had been forced to enter a dimensional world because he had no other choice. This was the same as Mingyuan Jiandi. Mingyuan Jiandi had also been forced to enter a dimensional world because of the seamless corridor's destruction, becoming half human and half Yuan Ko. Gohan and Mingyuan Jiandi had been forced to do this. If they had a choice, they would never have wanted to see this happen. However, Wu Zhang Shifeng was different. He had actually entered a dimensional world of his own accord. This meant that Wu Zhang wanted to become half human and half Yuan Ko. Why did he do this? Why did Wu Zhang Shifeng do such a thing? Gohan felt that Wu Zhang Shifeng was in disbelief. He hoped to get an answer from Wu Zhang's mouth. I have a dream. Seeing Gohan's puzzled gaze, Wu Zhang Shifeng stood up from his seat. He raised his head 45 degrees upwards, staring at the distant, rather melancholy sunlight. Finally, he spoke in a voice that was filled with the vicissitudes of life. I was born into an unhappy family. My father was the last famed sword wielder of the Wu Zhang clan, while my mother was the last direct descendant of the Wu Zhang clan. The Wu Zhang clan is the imperial clan of the Yamato people, and it is the last clan in this world that maintains the traditions of the Yamato people while only intermarrying with members of the Yamato bloodline. In the beginning, there were over 100 clans like the Wu Zhang clan, clans that attempted to maintain the pure bloodline of the Yamato people. But as time went on and the world changed, no matter how great a tradition was, it was no longer able to resist fate. Those 100 clans either changed their beliefs or were completely destroyed by the tides of history. In the end, only the Wu Zhang clan was left. There were no other pure-blooded Yamato people who could intermarry with the Wu Zhang clan. Left with no other choice, in order to maintain the traditions of the Wu Zhang clan, the clan had no choice but to destroy human relations and choose to intermarry with members of the same surname. Just like my mother, she was a child born from a pair of siblings. Wu Zhang Shifeng said calmly, "Why do you want to maintain such a boring tradition?" Hearing Wu Zhang Shifeng's words, Song Yifei said angrily, "Kenzu said long ago that from the moment of the apocalypse, there was no longer any distinction between races on Earth. All races are Earthlings, and all Earthlings are humans. We shouldn't continue to be bound by our bloodlines, because our bloodlines are inherently hostile to each other. We should merge all our bloodlines together and fight in the name of all humans. Why do you insist on doing such a boring thing, even going so far as to commit such heartless acts of incest?" What a joke. Hearing Song Yifei's words, Wu Zhang Shifeng's lips curled into a cold smile. That's just a huge joke. Perhaps Kenzu did have such an idea back then, but in reality, it was your Chinese bloodline, Chinese people, and Chinese culture that began to unscrupulously devour the bloodlines and culture of other races. Even the powerful Europeans were devoured by your Chinese people, completely losing their culture and traditions. Isn't this a matter of course? Song Yifei frowned and said, "And please don't use the word devour. This is not devouring, but integration. It's the integration of all races. It's not one-sided devouring." "Ha! Miss Song Yifei, are you lying with your eyes open, or are you lying with your eyes closed?" Wu Zhang Shifeng sneered a few times and said, "If it's really integration, I'm willing to admit it. But in fact, almost all humans now call themselves Chinese." The name of Huaxiao resounds throughout the earth, and everyone is proud of the Chinese bloodline in their bodies. However, our Yamato people have declined to the point where there are only a few poor kittens and puppies left. If we want to learn our own national language, we even have to go to the rescue protection class of non-Chinese material cultural heritage created by your Chinese people to learn. If our Yamato people want to learn from our Yamato people, they have to worship you Chinese people as their teachers. Isn't that the funniest lie in the world? Wu Zhang Shifang's words were so enlightening that Song Yifei couldn't refute him at the same time. She could only stand there in silence. In fact, even Gohan couldn't refute Wu Zhang Shifang's words, because Wu Zhang Shifang was telling the truth. In history, it had always been the strong culture devouring the weak culture. There was no problem of ethnic integration at all. If ethnic and culture could really be integrated, why was it that after thousands of years, the Chinese people were still the Chinese people, while the Mongolians and the Manchus, who had once occupied China, had completely lost their ethnic culture and become a member of China? In the end, they could only become exhibits in a museum. Therefore, the fact was that the strong culture and ethnic group would devour the weak culture and ethnic group. In the end, all cultures and ethnic groups would be devoured by the strongest one, and the real unification of mankind would be realized. This was the historical necessity, and Gohan believed that whether the great apocalypse happened or not, it would be the great Chinese people who would devour all cultures and ethnic groups in the end. Because only the culture of the Chinese people could be so broad-minded that it could accommodate and devour all cultures in the world. This was something that was destined the moment the culture of the Chinese people was created. Chapter 1536. Yifei, don't say anymore. Senior Wu Zhang is speaking the truth. Just let him continue. Gohan finally mediated. With Gohan's help, Wu Zhang Shifu continued. Actually, my mother's ancestors also knew that the trend of history was irresistible. Forcefully going against history and going against human ethics by intermarrying with people of the same surname would lead to endless trouble in the future. But my mother's ancestors didn't know that retribution would come so quickly. With the start of intermarrying with people of the same surname, it became extremely difficult to give birth. Even if a child was successfully born, the chances of the child becoming a child with dementia were too high for our family to bear. The Wu Zhang family had never had a sword bearer. Originally, they could only barely keep the family fed and warm. But with the start of intermarrying with people of the same surname, there were no more sword bearers in our family. What was even more terrifying was that the children with dementia who were born had no ability to work. They could only be raised by the family and became a burden to the family. The family's assets were quickly consumed. By my mother's generation, there were only 3 sane people in the entire family. And these 3 sane people had to think of ways to support 18 children with dementia. This even included my mother's grandfather. Finally, when my mother was 14 years old, my mother's parents couldn't bear such a painful life anymore. After knocking my mother out and throwing her out, they set fire to the entire house. They burned themselves and the 18 children with dementia to death. Just like that, the Wu Zhang family was completely annihilated. Only my mother was left. At that time, my mother was still underage and didn't have the ability to support herself. Moreover, she couldn't see a future, so she finally decided to enter a maid academy and sold herself to become an exclusive maid. She planned to live a life of relying on others and live out the rest of her life. So, when my mother graduated, she met my father, a noble sword-bearer. However, I will never voluntarily mention this guy's name in my life, because he is already dead in my heart. At this point, Wu Zhang Shifu's face suddenly revealed an expression of extreme anger. What surprised Gohan was that there was a hint of unconcealable fear in his furious expression. Wu Zhangshifang's father is. Gohan's heart skipped a beat. He immediately searched for Wu Zhangshifang's detailed information on his personal terminal. At the same time, he also found the information on Wu Zhangshifang's father. Based on the information, this father seemed to be a rather perfect person. He had a certain level of strength and was polite to others. He often participated in various charity groups and donated around 70% of his assets to improve the lives of ordinary people. In any case, from the information he had, he was a role model for humanity. It was hard to imagine that such a father would make Wu Zhang Shifang so angry. Wuzhong Shifeng continued to speak. My father is a bastard, a demon in human skin. He's completely different inside and outside the house. He's the most bastard in the world. He had chosen my mother only because he liked her patience. From the day my mother entered the door, he launched endless torture on my mother. Even when my mother was pregnant with me, he still didn't let my mother go. Even after I was born, he didn't let my childhood go. Gahan could hear the sound of Wuzhong Shifeng's teeth grinding. I don't want to remember what my mother and I have been through for the rest of my life. You just need to apply all the cruelest things in the world to my mother and I. The only thing I can have and keep is this life. Later, even my mother, who was good at enduring and had the most excellent Yamato character, couldn't bear the torture of that bastard and ended her life with a bottle of poison. Before my mother died, I asked my mother why the two of us were treated so cruelly. So my mother told me that because the two of us have the blood of the Yamato race in our bodies, and in the eyes of that bastard, all non-Chinese bloodlines are the most lowly bloodlines in the world. That's why that bastard tortures us like this. In the end, my mother still left, but before she left me a chip. It was filled with all the information of the Yamato people that the Wushang family had kept for thousands of years. So from that moment on, I made up my mind to rebuild our Yamato people. In our Yamato people's homeland, we'll build a country that belongs to us, so that the Chinese can never bully our Yamato people again. Our Yamato people will become a real people again and stand tall on this land. Hearing this, Gahan and Song Yifei thought at the same time. Wuzhong Shifeng continued to speak. This must be the source of Wuzhong Shifeng's obsession. That bastard had many children, so he didn't like me at all. After my mother died, he chased me to live in the storeroom. I was clearly already 12 years old, but I was still wearing the clothes that my mother had personally sewn for me before she died 6 years ago. I was as humble as a slave in front of my brothers and sisters until one day, when that bastard returned home, he found that his home had been turned into a sea of fire. His 13 children had all turned into 13 charred corpses. My brothers and sisters are really pitiful. Never in their wildest dreams did they think that a lowly worm would dare to set fire to everyone, including himself. Wuzhong Shifeng's face began to show a sinister expression, and this expression also made Song Yifei feel a chill from the depths of his bones. This Wuzhong Shifeng was only 12 years old, and he had actually set fire to all his brothers and sisters. This kind of viciousness was something that Song Yifei could never have imagined. However, Song Yifei did not feel much pity for those who had died tragically. After all, from Wuzhong Shifeng's resentful tone, he could tell that Wuzhong Shifeng had suffered inhumane treatment during his childhood, and how his brothers and sisters had abused him. At first, I want to burn myself to death too. Wuzhong Shifeng seemed to have thought of something interesting, and suddenly smiled. But perhaps God wanted me to live. The storeroom I lived in actually had exceptionally good fireproofing properties. In the end, when the fire was finally extinguished, my 13 brothers and sisters were already dead, but I only suffered a little burn on my feet, and I was still alive and kicking. I guess that bastard must have known that the fire that burned all his children was set by me, and I was his most hated enemy. But he did not dare to tell the truth, and instead completely changed his attitude and became extraordinarily nice to me. He cared about me every day without a break, and I actually became the happiest child in the world. Wuzhong Shifeng said, and suddenly his body began to tremble crazily. Ha! That bastard, because of excessive indulgence, he actually lost the ability to reproduce. I know that he went to see a doctor more than once, wanting to restore his ability to reproduce, and once he gave birth to any child, it would be the time of my death. But he was really useless, and he had already become a useless person. He only had one son, me. And if he didn't want to be completely cut off, he could only take good care of me and love me like his own son, even though I was indeed his own son. Wuzhong Shifeng's laughter revealed how much sorrow was revealed, and perhaps only Wuzhong Shifeng himself knew clearly in his heart. Later, when I was tested to have the talent of sword-bearer, he was even happier, and he could not bear to kill me. so he treated me even better. Especially when I successfully synchronized with a Xianming sword, he told me that I was the person he loved the most in his life. And my mother was also the person he loved the most in his life. And he would be proud of me for the rest of his life. Wu Zhang Shifang's mouth flashed a trace of a sinister smile. Originally, I did not want to kill him. Originally, I wanted to see that he gave me this body and let him live peacefully until he grew old. But I did not think that he could be shameless to this extent. It was fine that he lied to me, but he actually went against his conscience and lied to my mother. I was completely furious, so I took him out to fight with me, and then deliberately entered the territory of a universe-level Yuan Ko. Then, I watched as he was eaten alive by a universe-level Yuan Ko, and before he died, he cried to me for help. Listening to his screams, I suddenly felt empty. I had already avenged my mother, but at the same time, I had also lost my future. I no longer knew what I should do next. At that time, I was muddle-headed and my entire body was on the verge of collapse. I had to use the fastest speed to find a goal that I could fight for the rest of my life, or else I would lose the motivation to live and eventually become a rotten corpse. Fortunately, I finally found the goal I wanted, which was to take the lifelong goal of the Wuzhong family as my own responsibility to create a world that only belongs to the Yamato nation, and to let the Yamato nation once again stand up. Wuzhong Shifang waved his fist and said passionately, "From that day onwards, I was not called Zhang Shifang. I was called Wuzhong Shifang." In the next few decades, I began to accumulate the power to offend people. On one hand, I worked for you Chinese. On the other hand, Hao Tian Jindi, and I acted as his most loyal lackey. On the other hand, I began to collect the scattered geniuses of the Yamato nation. As long as a genius with the blood of the Yamato nation passed the synchronization, I immediately took them in as a disciple and took care of them. At the same time, I instilled them with the glorious history of the Yamato nation. In the end, I established a medium-sized organization with hundreds of sword-bearers, an organization that truly belongs to the Yamato nation. Wuzhang Shifang said faintly. The organization that truly belongs to the Yamato nation was probably the sword-bearers that stayed in Yamato City. Chapter 1537. So you faked your death and came here? Guhan asked with a frown after listening to Wuzhang Shifang's narration. That's right. My original plan was to wait a little longer until the sword-bearers I had trained had fully matured. It would be best if there was another sword immortal level cultivator among them. Only then would I activate my plan and bring my people to Japan to build Yamato City. Wuzhang Shifang sighed and said, "It's a pity that the plan couldn't keep up with the changes. I didn't expect that the 12 ancestors of sorcery would be released again. I thought that it was impossible for humans to defeat the 12 ancestors of sorcery again, so I left with my subordinates. On the surface, I said that I was going to fight the 12 Zhu Wu, but in reality, I was just bringing everyone to Japan. Actually, I had good intentions. If the 8 Bay cities had really perished, then this place of mine would be the last hope of humanity. In a way, I could be considered a hero and an extension of humanity." Wuzhang Shifang looked at Gahan and said shamelessly, "If humanity had really perished, then perhaps you would indeed be an extension of humanity." Guhan nodded, but his face revealed a disdainful expression. "But you're wrong. Our 8 base cities have not perished, and the population of 200 million is still here. You are not an extension of humanity, but a traitor of humanity." "Yes, I am indeed a traitor now," Wuzhang Shifang said with a bitter smile. "I originally thought that humanity was doomed, but I didn't expect it to survive in the end. Little friend Guhan, it is truly a great fortune for a human race to have a hero like you. So, you don't hate me for ruining your plan to become an extension of humanity." Guhan said with a hint of playfulness. "I am a Yamato, but I am also a human. No one can change this. You are a well-deserved hero for humanity to be able to preserve its strength. I express my sincere gratitude to you." After Wuzhang Shifang finished speaking, he suddenly knelt in front of Gahan and kowtowed to Gahan to express his gratitude. Oomph! Gahan snorted coldly. Although he was very disdainful of Wu Zhangshi's actions, Gahan could feel that Wu Zhangshi wasn't kneeling to curry favor with him. Instead, Wu Zhangshi was sincerely thanking him for saving humanity. Based on this point alone, Gahan had to admit that Wu Zhangshi wasn't beyond redemption. Then what do you plan to do next? Gahan didn't let Wu Zhangshi get up from the ground. He simply stood in front of Wu Zhangshi and asked, "Of course, it is to take root in the land that belongs to our Yamato people, continue, and finally recreate another Yamato people." Wu Zhangshi didn't intend to stand up. He continued to kneel in front of Gahan and said, "What a joke. What do you think this is? How many people do you think you have? How many sword bearers do you think you have? How many sword ladies do you think you have? What right do you have to lead these humans to continue living? Will the Yuan Ko here treat you as nothing?" Gahan asked 4 questions in a row, causing Wu Zhangshi to sweat profusely. "This is our Yamato people's land." Wu Zhangshi gritted his teeth and said, "As for the population, you already know that there are at least 100,000 humans in that dimensional rift. Furthermore, they are all pure Yamato people. As long as we can save all these people, our Yamato city will have the foundation to continue existing. As long as we have enough people, we can also have enough sword bearers. As for the sword ladies, you originally planned on waiting for the humans on the mainland to perish before going over to clean up the battlefield and pick up all the sword ladies we left behind, right?" Gahan directly said what Wu Zhangshi wanted to say next. Wu Zhangshi didn't even have the courage to retort because that was the truth. "Then how do you plan on dealing with the Yuan Ko here?" Gahan continued asking. "I don't plan on dealing with the Yuan Ko here. We can live in harmony," Wu Zhangshi said with his head lowered. "Oh, humans and the Yuan Ko have been fighting for thousands of years. What right do you have to say that you can live in harmony with the Yuan Ko?" Gahan asked curiously. "Sorry, I can't say." Wu Zhangshi, who had been speaking freely, suddenly shut his mouth and was unwilling to answer Gahan's question. "You have to answer." Gahan didn't say much. He pulled out his Xianyuan sword and pressed it against Wu Zhangshi head. Feeling the slight coolness coming from the Xianyuan sword, Wu Zhangshi couldn't help but swallow a few mouthfuls of saliva. Wu Zhangshi, who had been paying close attention to the situation on the mainland, already knew Gahan's strength very well. He knew that Gahan had ascended to the throne and become an Emperor Sword level sword wielder. Moreover, the synchronized Emperor Sword level sword mistress was unprecedented since ancient times. The Xianyuan sword, known as the Emperor of Emperor Sword level sword mistresses, was fully deserving of being the #1 Emperor Sword level sword mistress. At the same time, Gahan also proved that he was also deserving of being the #1 Emperor Sword level expert by killing Ying Zheng and 12 Zhu Wu. Perhaps even Kanzu back then couldn't reach Gahan's current achievements. It could be said that Wu Zhangshi had no chance of winning against Gahan. Otherwise, Wu Zhangshi wouldn't have told Gahan all the secrets he had hidden in his heart and the painful experiences he had gone through in his childhood. This was because Wu Zhangshi knew that only by telling the truth to Gahan, Gahan might spare his life. Only then would he be able to protect himself. The Yamato city that Wu Zhangshi had painstakingly built was the dream that Wu Zhangshi had worked hard for his entire life. Gahan was also very clear about Wu Zhangshi's thoughts. At the same time, it was precisely because of this that Gahan felt very strange. Wu Zhangshi was obviously going to tell everything he knew, but why was he clenching his teeth on this issue and unwilling to speak no matter what? Even a fool would know that there must be a bigger secret behind Wu Zhangshi's reluctance to speak. Gahan was going to force this secret out no matter what. "I promised that person that I would not tell the truth no matter what. I beg you, Your Majesty Hong Jun, please don't force me." Wu Zhangshi was almost begging Gahan. "Ife, according to the database of our sword committee, this senior Wu Zhangshi Shifeng should be dead, right? Gohan suddenly looked at Song Yifei and asked with a smile. Isn't that nonsense? Song Yifei rolled his eyes at Gohan. Then all the sword bearers here should be dead, right? Gohan asked again. Let me see. Well, they all died on the battlefield 5 years ago. Their bodies are all gone. They died quite cleanly. Song Yifei seemed to understand something and said with a smile. You? Hong Junjin to you. Of course, Wuzhong Shifeng also understood Gohan's intention at this time. He, who was kneeling on the ground, suddenly wanted to stand up and argue with Gohan. However, the Xian Yuan sword directly hit Wuzhong Shifeng's shoulder. Wuzhong Shifeng was instantly suppressed and continued to kneel in front of Gohan. He could not even move a centimeter. And the Aborigines here, oh, the sword committee doesn't know that they exist at all. They're also dead, right? Gohan walked around Wuzhong Shifeng's neck with the Xian Yuan sword, and, at the same time, said the most frightening sentence to Wuzhong Shifeng. Even if I kill them all, no one will come to trouble me, right? I'm still the hero and savior of mankind, right? You, shameless. You don't deserve to be the savior of mankind. Wuzhong Shifeng was extremely sad and angry. He never expected that the savior of mankind could threaten him with so many human lives. Was he really the savior of mankind? Yes, I'm the savior of mankind. Gohan kicked Wu Zhongshi's stomach, sending Wu Zhongshi, who was once his senior, who Gohan had to kneel on the ground and beg to become his disciple, flying out with a single kick. Wu Zhongshi crashed heavily into the wall. What was surprising was that even though the force of the impact was extremely heavy, the wall, which was made of wood and should have been extremely fragile, did not move at all. It did not even shake a little. This situation had already violated the basic laws of physics. It could be seen how amazing Gohan's control of power was. Wuzhong Shifeng, let me tell you, even if there are only 2 human beings left in my hands, a man and a woman, I will still be the savior of mankind. If it weren't for me, all the humans would have died. There wouldn't be a single survivor. That guy, Sect Master Tong Tian, wants to destroy the entire origin world and countless subworlds. No one can survive, including your Yamato city. So tell me everything you know. Otherwise, before Sect Leader Tong Tian takes action, I will destroy your Yamato city first. I'm not a stubborn and principled saint. I could do anything. As long as I can save mankind, I will always have a clear conscience. Gohan walked up to Wuzhong Shifeng and said coldly, leaving no room for refusal. And when Wuzhong Shifeng saw Gohan's cold eyes, he knew that the other party was telling the truth. If he continued to hide it, the entire Yamato city, as well as the thousands of people in the city, would be destroyed. Moreover, even if Wuzhong Shifeng was reluctant, he had to admit that only Gohan could save the world. I'll tell you, Wuzhong Shifeng let out a long sigh and finally opened his mouth. Chapter 1538. It all started when I killed that old bastard. I thought my actions were flawless, but I didn't expect a woman to be standing in the void. She saw me leave my father in the lurch, Wuzhong Shifeng said with his head lowered. This woman told me that she knew what I was thinking and what I wanted. She could help me keep this secret and even help me realize my dream. As long as I listened to her and joined her organization, it would be enough. Wuzhong Shifeng said. A woman? What kind of woman is she? Gohan asked. An extremely powerful woman. At this point, Wuzhong Shifeng couldn't help but shiver. She's very strong, terrifyingly strong. The void is like a toy in front of her. She can control it at will. She can even open a void gate directly to the moon. She only used one look to kill that universe-level Yuan Ko. That was a universe-level Yuan Ko. Even an Emperor Sword wielder would have to fight a powerful opponent for more than 10 minutes. Just like that, he was killed by her gaze. That's not the scariest thing. The scariest thing is that she holds the secrets of life and death. Wuzhong Shifeng trembled even more violently. That bastard, I clearly saw him being eaten by Yuanko with my own eyes. Then, that woman cut open Yuanko's stomach and took out my father, who only had half a head left. In front of me, he resurrected that half a head into a complete body. He even resurrected him for real, giving that bastard new life and resurrecting him for real. I'm 100% sure that it was the original B** star that was resurrected. I'll never forget the look of hatred in his eyes. As Wuzhang Shifang spoke, he couldn't help but hug his head. His words were filled with boundless fear. You're saying that woman only used half a head to resurrect your father? Guhan grabbed Wuzhang Shifang's collar and asked. Wuzhang Shifang nodded his head vigorously to show that he was telling the truth. Guhan, isn't this your ability? Song Yifei was also shocked. He couldn't help but look at Guhan. Song Yifei naturally recalled what happened a few months ago. There was also only half a head left, and the owner of this head had been dead for 4 years. However, such a head had been resurrected by Guhan in an unbelievable way, which certainly reminded Song Yifei of the man beside him. That woman is not me. Guhan said with some annoyance, it's not difficult. As long as you master the ability to split consciousness fragments, you can do it. For example, Sect leader Tong Tian has already stood at the top of the sages and even surpassed the sages' abilities. He can also do this kind of thing. Moreover, he can do it faster, better, and more perfectly than me. This woman may be a doppelganger of Sect leader Tong Tian, but according to him, this incident happened at least 30 years ago. At that time, Master was still alive, so Sect leader Tong Tian shouldn't have been resurrected. Song Yifei said puzzledly. Right. Master once said that when the seamless corridor exploded, that was actually when the Grandmaster Tong Tian escaped. Perhaps the Grandmaster Tong Tian had already been resurrected, but he had been hiding in this world the entire time. Only when he had more or less recovered did he go to Master's place to retrieve the black crystal. Song Yifei began to let his imagination run wild as he began to analyze the situation. However, he didn't notice that Guhan's face had become incomparably ugly. Enough! To Song Yifei's surprise, Guhan suddenly roared at him. Song Yifei was stunned by the roar, and tears of grievance flowed out of the corners of his eyes. However, he didn't dare to say anything more and could only shut his mouth obediently. Go on, Guhan said to Wuzhang Shifang. At that time, I knew that I was no match for that woman, no matter what, but I still chose to refuse. I said that I would never do anything that would betray human beings. Even if she could expose my behavior, I would commit suicide on the spot, and I would never be forced by her. Wuzhang Shifang looked at Guhan and Song Yifei curiously. He didn't know what had happened between them, but he still answered. That woman told me that she didn't want me to do anything that would betray human beings. She just wanted me to join an organization and become a member of that organization. This organization would take the initiative to support the growth of its members so that they could smoothly advance to the peak of human beings. The price was that they had to carry out the task given by the organization, but the members could judge for themselves whether this task was a betrayal of human beings. If it was, the members of the organization had the right to refuse. If it wasn't, the presiding member had to carry out the task. I hesitated, not knowing whether I should join the organization or not, so the woman directly took me to the organization's headquarters and let me meet some other members in this headquarters. Finally, I made up my mind to join the organization. Wuzhang Shifang said in a deep voice. Don't tell me first. Let me guess who the members of this organization are. Wuzhang Shifang originally wanted to say the members of the organization directly, but Guhan waved his hand and said, I'm not sure about others, but there must be either Long Shi Jindi or Hao Yin Jindi in this organization, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't have joined the organization so easily. Your Majesty Hong Jun, you are really full of wisdom. Wuzhang Shifang smiled bitterly. But you guessed wrong. There was not only one of these two, but both Jindi were in this organization. But at that time, Long Shi Jindi was just Long Shi Jindi, and the other one who appeared there was Ku Shui Jindi, who ascended to immortality 27 years ago. Both he and Hao Yin Jindi were members of this organization. Really? Hearing Wuzhang Shifang's words, Gohan didn't seem to have any reaction on the surface, but in fact he was shocked. Both Jindi, who were regarded as the pillars of human beings, were members of this organization. It could be said that the power of this organization had already grasped the high-end power of the entire human race. It would not be a problem for this organization to directly change its name to the Sword Committee headquarters. What was the fundamental meaning of such an organization's existence? It was because I saw His Majesty Ku Shui Jindi and His Majesty Hao Ian Jindi that I joined this organization without hesitation. I felt that since this organization had included all the high-level human beings, it was actually equivalent to controlling all the power of human beings. If such an organization wanted to destroy human beings, it would be easier than anything else. What was the need for me to resist? Wuzhang Shifeng recalled. After joining this organization for a long time, I discovered that the organization seemed to only select human elites to invite, and the humans who were invited to join the organization were at least spirit sword bearers. 60% of the human immortal sword bearers were also members of this organization. By the way, Miss Song Yifei, your teacher, Sword Immortal Baiju Wu Dao, is also a member of this organization, and he is much older than me. Wuzhang Shifeng suddenly looked at Song Yifei and said. Song Yifei had a blank expression on her face. In fact, Song Yifei did not have deep feelings for Wu Dao. After all, it had only been a few days since they became master and disciple, and Wu Dao had already sacrificed his life for human beings. However, there was no doubt that Wu Dao was a very important existence in Song Yifei's life. Song Yifei would never forget him for the rest of her life. On the anniversary of Wu Dao's death, Song Yifei would also hold a memorial ceremony for her master. Song Yifei still had some feelings for Wu Dao. Later, I received several missions issued by the organization one after another. These missions gave me a coordinate and asked me to go to Fusang Island to find something. Because this mission did not cause any harm to human beings and instead could kill Yuan Ko, I went. Wuzhang Shifeng said. This is the reason why you often went to Fusang Island when you were young. Gohan revealed a look of sudden realization. No wonder in the official records, Wuzhang Shifeng went to Fusang Island every day when he was young. Most of his reputation was established on Fusang Island. In the beginning, Gohan thought that Wuzhang Shifeng was doing this to get closer to his homeworld. He never expected it to be the organization's mission. I came to Fusang Island more than 10 times and experienced countless failures. I finally succeeded on my last attempt. I successfully found a cave and dug in the cave according to the directions given by the organization for 3 months. Finally, I dug out a secret passageway. Through this secret passageway, I found a brand new dimensional rift, which is the world filled with demons that you know of. After a simple investigation of that world and seeing the hundreds of thousands of pure-blooded Yamato humans, my heart began to stir because at that moment, I seemed to see the hope of rebuilding the Yamato race. In the end, when I completed the mission and returned to the organization, that woman found me again. She told me that there were 2 choices in front of me. One was to quit the organization and have nothing to do with it from now on. The secret passageway would also be taken over by the organization, and I was not allowed to go near that secret passageway. The second was to follow the organization's instructions and go to another dimensional world. Then, I became a half-human and half-human being, half Yuan Ko. The organization would help me manage the relationship with the Fusang Divine System, so that Yuan Ko of the Fusang Divine System would not interfere with my construction of the city on Fusang Island. They would maintain peaceful coexistence with me and acquiesce to the existence of a human city on Fusang Island. Wuzhang Shifeng suddenly let out a long sigh. So, 6 years ago, I went to another dimensional world and became what I am now. Because of the filth in my body, I could no longer enter the dimensional barrier. In addition, 12 Zhu Wu happened to appear at that time. So I simply chose to fake my death and build this small Yamato city. Chapter 1539. At this moment, The mysteries of Wushang Shifeng were almost solved. Many strange things about Wushang Shifeng had been explained, such as his relationship with Yuan Ko and his relationship with the alternate space. All these questions had been answered. But then a new mystery appeared, and that was what was the truth behind the mysterious organization that was hiding behind Wushang Shifeng. In fact, there was no need for Wushang Shifeng to take the initiative to speak. In fact, Gahan had already been aware of this organization. He had long felt that there had always been a vague fog behind the high-level human leaders, which he could not see clearly. However, Gahan did not expect that this layer of fog would be so thick that it had involved most of the high-level human leaders. However, after knowing this, Gahan did not seem too frightened. Instead, he became a little calmer. The reason was very simple. If this organization really wanted to harm mankind, it would be impossible for such a large proportion of the high-level human leaders to join this organization. The reason was very simple. Take a small country in the Middle East as an example. If this small country was compared to mankind, and the United States was compared to the dark forces, then if the United States had already controlled more than 60% of the high-level leaders of this small country, including the president and prime minister of this small country, and made them his people, would he still need to spend so much effort to attack this small country? Directly ordering the higher-ups under his control to make this small country self-destruct. This was not a difficult thing to do. The higher-ups only needed to make a few wrong decisions or choose to stand by and do nothing at the crucial moment. Then, the humans would have perished countless times in the history of more than 1,000 years. Therefore, Gahan believed that the organization should not have too much malice toward mankind. At least before the Tongtian sect was completely resurrected, this organization did not intend to do anything to destroy mankind. What really worried Gahan about this organization was their relationship with the Tongtian sect. It would naturally be best if this organization had nothing to do with the Tongtian sect. However, if this organization was actually a foreshadowing left by the Tongtian sect, then as mentioned before, this organization might be harmless to mankind before the Tongtian sect was resurrected. However, after the Tongtian sect was completely resurrected, this organization was likely to become the best means for the Tongtian sect to destroy mankind. Is this organization really related to the sect leader of Tongtian? Although Gahan did not want to admit it, he felt that this organization was most likely related to Tongtian. The most obvious evidence was the consciousness fragment left by sect leader Tongtian in the cave. According to Wu Zhangshifeng, this cave did not exist in the first place. It was a cave that Wu Zhangshifeng had dug out based on his own exploration. Finally, he had passed through this cave to reach the alternate dimension. Naturally, it was impossible for Zhang Shifeng to achieve this with his own abilities. Only someone who was incomparably familiar with the alternate dimension could dig a cave from the outside that led directly to the alternate dimension. In that case, there was no doubt that the person who gave orders behind the scenes was someone who had a deep understanding of the alternate dimension. In fact, he was the one who created this alternate dimension back then. The consciousness fragment obviously appeared there after the cave was dug. In other words, the Tongtian sect had come here after the cave was dug, which was why he had left his consciousness fragment at the entrance. Although it was possible that the Tongtian sect had found this place based on his memory of the alternate dimension without knowing it beforehand, there was no doubt that the Tongtian sect had already known everything here. At the thought of this, Gahan felt that he could not let Wu Zhangshifeng go on like this anymore. He helped Wu Zhangshifeng up from the ground and looked at him seriously. It's very dangerous here. You can't stay here anymore. I can forgive your betrayal on behalf of mankind. Take the people here back to Yanjing City. I promise that no one will make things difficult for you. Everyone can enjoy the same treatment, and there will never be any discrimination. Go back. Wu Zhangshifeng was stunned for a moment. He took a deep look at Gahan. I'm not human anymore. Can I still go back? Of course you can, Gahan said with certainty. As long as your heart is with us humans, you are one of us. We will not make the same mistake as Mingyuan Jiandi. You can believe me. I promise with my integrity. Go back. Wu Zhangshifang's eyes revealed a blank expression. Obviously, he began to feel conflicted. After a long silence, Wu Zhangshifang finally shook his head firmly. Hongjun Jindi, you don't have to say anymore. This is my lifelong dream. Even if my body turns into ashes, I will never leave Yamato City that belongs to me. Really? Gohan took a deep look at Wu Zhangshifang. He knew that there was no need to persuade him anymore. Wu Zhangshifang would not change his mind just because of a few words. What about these children? And these aborigines? Gohan looked at the aborigines who were playing happily outside the door. What kind of ending do you want to give them? Don't tell me you want to forcibly place your will on these innocent people. It is very safe here. Wu Zhangshifang gritted his teeth. I can give them a safe world. They are also the cornerstone of the future of Yamato City. I can guarantee their safety. What a joke. Gohan began to laugh coldly. I can kill all the humans here with one sword. You don't even have the ability to resist me. Do you really have the cheek to say that you can give them a safe world? Gohan Fang's words made Wu Zhangshifang speechless. This was the truth. Faced with the incomparably powerful Gohan, Wu Zhangshifang had no choice but to kneel and beg for mercy. Otherwise, the entire Yamato City would be destroyed. As long as your majesty doesn't do anything, Wu Zhangshifang still wanted to argue. So what if I don't do anything? Gohan continued to expose Wu Zhangshifang's ridiculous delusion. You are just an immortal sword-level swordsman. The strongest among the rest is just a famed sword-level swordsman. The Fuso Divine Branch's Yuinko can exterminate your small city more than 100 times. Why are you giving them safety? This is what the organization has promised me. Wu Zhangshifang raised his head abruptly and said, Moreover, in the past 6 years, just like what the organization said, Yamato City has been very peaceful and safe. Not a single Yuinko has come to trouble us. I've even communicated with some of the Yuinko's higher-ups, and they all promise me that they're willing to accept our Yamato City. Let's not talk about the effectiveness of the organization's promise. Let me tell you, this organization won't live for long. I will not allow such a lawless organization to exist behind the human race. I will crush this organization completely. Since his name has never appeared in human history, then don't even think about appearing in the future. He will not exist. Gohan said coldly. Wu Zhangshifang had to believe Gohan's words. The organization had always been very mysterious. But except for that woman, almost all the members of the organization were humans themselves. Now that the human race had been controlled by Gohan, Gohan's disciple, and his woman, the organization's power had been wiped out. The only one left was probably that mysterious woman. But Wu Zhangshifang did not think that woman was a match for Gohan. This was because Wu Zhangshifang, Longshu Jindi, and all the other senior members of the organization had looked for that woman together and sincerely begged her to help the human race and kill 12 Zuwu. But that woman refused without hesitation and told them very clearly that 12 Zuwu was very powerful. She was not a match for 12 Zuwu and would not seek her own death. Now that 12 Zuwu had died in the hands of Gohan, didn't this mean that Gohan was stronger than that woman? Therefore, in the face of Gohan's powerful suppression, Wu Zhangshifang felt that this time, the organization was likely to usher in a real doomsday. That woman would eventually die under Gohan's strangulation. Senior Wu Zhangshifang, I will call you senior for the last time. Don't be stubborn. Your Yamato City can't be rebuilt, and your Yamato people will eventually disappear in the long river of history and become one with all the human race. Don't be stubborn. Gohan advised for the last time. Let them make their own decision. Wu Zhangshifang hesitated for a long time, and finally sighed. I will summon everyone and tell them what you said. I will not stop those who are willing to go back to Yanjing City with you. But for those who are unwilling, I hope that your majesty can respect their decision. After all, a melon that is forcibly taken will not be sweet. Good? Since they are willing to court death, I will not stop them. Gohan nodded. Half an hour later, Wu Zhangshifang rang the bell to summon everyone, and the 121 sword-bearers and 3,624 indigenous people of Yamato City gathered in the center of the city square. In front of everyone, Wu Zhangshi Fang directly introduced Guhan's identity. When they heard that Guhan was the famous Hong Jun Jiandi who killed 12 Zhu Wu, the indigenous people did not have any reaction, but all the sword-bearers were shocked. Although they were hiding on Fusang Island, they were all sword-bearers who had spent their childhood in human-based cities. They had experienced the tragic period when the 12 ancestors of sorcery had beaten up the humans. When they found out that a human could kill the 12 ancestors of sorcery on his own, it was imaginable how shocked they were. Chapter 1540. Greetings, Your Majesty Hong Jun. After the excitement, everyone remembered that Guhan had another identity, and that was the human Jiandi. So all the sword-bearers knelt on the ground one after another and bowed respectfully to Guhan. Only Amakusa Ichiro remained motionless. It was not that he did not respect the cold, but he had fallen into a state of dizziness. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that the person who saved him and the others from the alternate dimension and fought alongside him at the same time was one of the strongest in human history. This sudden news completely shattered Ichiro Amakusa's rationality, and he felt dizzy all over. His Majesty Hong Jun came this time to persuade us to go back. Wu Zhangshi Fang did not play dumb with his men and directly stated Guhan's purpose. His Majesty Hong Jun said that it is impossible to build our Yamato city, and we will only wait for death if we stay here. I thought about it for a long time, and I think what His Majesty said does make sense. If we stay here, there's a great chance that we will be buried in this land. I don't want everyone to become a victim of my personal obsession. After His Majesty's persuasion, I decided to give everyone a chance to choose. Those who are willing to return to Yanjing City and reintegrate into the human family can leave with His Majesty. With His Majesty's protection, I believe all of you can reach Yanjing City safely. Wu Zhangshi Fang said indifferently. As soon as Wu Zhangshi Fang finished speaking, all the sword-bearers broke into an uproar. In fact, there was no need for Wu Zhangshi Fang to admit it. All the sword-bearers present knew in their hearts that it was difficult for this weak Yamato city to survive. Their dream of rebuilding the Yamato people had less than 20% chance of coming true. It was just that because of Wu Zhangshi Fang's brainwashing and training, as well as his betrayal of human beings, these sword-bearers had no choice but to stay in Yamato City and take a gamble. But now there was a choice. Hong Jun Jiandi appeared in front of everyone in person and promised that Yanjing City would not care about this betrayal. This was probably the only chance for them to return to the relatively safe human family. Everyone knew that this was a decision related to their lives. However, when he thought about his dream and the 6 years he had worked hard for, his desire to leave became much dimmer. Therefore, the situation fell into a stalemate. Lord Wu Zhangshi Fang, what about you? Would you like to leave with us? Suddenly, someone asked Wu Zhangshi Fang in a loud voice. I won't go. Wu Zhangshi Fang lightly said, This is my dream. This is my burial place. I will never leave this place. Then I won't leave either. I'm not leaving either. We will accompany you. Wu Zhangshi Fang's prestige in this city was really unparalleled. Therefore, after Wu Zhangshi Fang expressed his position, most of the sword-bearers shouted one after another, saying that they would live and die with Wu Zhangshi Fang, advance and retreat together, and never separate. Then, those who want to leave, please come forward. When Wu Zhangshi Fang saw everyone shouting his name, he was so excited that his eyes were full of tears, and he choked with sobs as he spoke to his men. Seeing this scene, Guhan knew that he was going to lose this time. Sure enough, after Wu Zhangshi Fang shed tears, the scene became even more excited. There was not even a sword-bearer who stood up and was ready to leave. I will stay here tonight. That's it. Those who want to stay here, stay in your residence tonight and are not allowed to go out. If anyone wants to leave with me, gather in this square in the early hours of the morning. I will take all of you with me. In the face of this excited scene, which was shouting Wuzhong Shifang's name, Guhan said calmly in a loud voice that suppressed all the people present. What a vicious move. Wuzhong Shifang's eyes widened as he stared at Guhan. Wuzhong Shifang had to admit that Guhan's words were too poisonous. Humans were herd animals and were easily affected by collective emotions. Even elite humans like the sword-bearers were no exception. Even if there were sword-bearers who were clear-headed in the crowd, due to the current situation, even if they wanted to leave with Guhan, they didn't have the courage to take the initiative to stand up. And Guhan's last sentence had the effect of taking drastic measures. There was still more than half a day before 12 a.m., which was enough time for people to calm down. Then, those sword-bearers who had calmed down could take advantage of the dark and windy night, as well as the restriction of those who wanted to stay here, to let go of all the restrictions and leave with Guhan. That was why Wuzhong Shifang said that Guhan's move was extremely vicious, completely destroying the collective emotions that Wuzhong Shifang had worked so hard to mobilize. In fact, that night, many people could hear hurried footsteps coming from outside the room. Obviously, some people were planning to leave here. Some of the sword-bearers who wanted to stay in Yamato City wanted to go out and stop the others from leaving. However, as soon as they got close to their doors, they discovered that there was a line of small words carved on their doors using sword chi. Once this door is opened, you must leave. The meaning of this sentence was very simple. As long as anyone dared to open this door, it meant that they wanted to leave Yamato City and Wuzhong Shifang, and then Guhan would forcibly take them away, never giving them any room to choose. Facing such a situation, of course, those sword-bearers who really wanted to stay here didn't dare to open their door again. They could only wait in torment until dawn before silently opening their door. How is it? After dawn, Wuzhong Shifang had been sitting in his room, not even going out, just waiting for his subordinate to report. His Majesty Hong Jun has left. The person who reported to Wuzhong Shifang was none other than Amakusa Ichiro. I know he has left, but I'm asking, how many people left with him? Wuzhong Shifang said with a bitter smile. Amakusa Ichiro hesitated for a while, probably thinking that his concealment was not very useful, and Wuzhong Shifang would know the real number sooner or later. So in the end, he nodded and said, out of 121 brothers, 38 people stayed. That means that 2/3 of the people have left. Wuzhong Shifang's body could not help but tremble. He had already guessed that many people would choose to leave, but he did not expect that there would be so many people who chose to leave. This was a direct force that he had cultivated for only 20 to 30 years, and they were all sword bearers that he had personally trained. But now, 2/3 of them actually chose to leave. Originally, Wuzhong Shifang thought that the number 38 should only be the number of people who left. Sir, do you want me to chase after them? Seeing Wuzhong Shifang's pale face, Amakusa Ichiro immediately said, they just left not long ago. If we chase after them now, we should still be able to catch up. What a joke, with His Majesty Hong Jun escorting them personally. Even I can't catch up. How can you catch up? Wuzhong Shifang glared at Amakusa Ichiro, then waved his hand helplessly and said, forget it, a melon forcibly picked won't be sweet. Let them go. By the way, those natives, are they still here? Wuzhong Shifang suddenly asked nervously. Not yet. After all, the natives do not understand Huaxia, so they do not know that they can leave at night. I took a look just now. Most of the natives are still here. Only a small number of them disappeared, probably when they went to the toilet at night. Hong Jun Jindi took them away, thinking that they wanted to leave. Now, at least 90% of the natives are still here with us. Then that's enough. Wuzhong Shifang took a deep breath, then clenched his fists tightly and said, as long as we have these 38 children who are of the same mind as me, and the blood that truly belongs to our Yamato people, our Yamato people will definitely be reborn. Wuzhong Shifang said with determination. Okay, I will send you here. We can go our separate ways. A few hours later, on the beach of Japan, Gahan looked at the sword bearers behind him, who were anxious but full of hope for a new life, and then said to Song Yifei, who was next to him, where are you going? Song Yifei was startled by Gahan's words. Didn't they agree to send these sword bearers back to Yanjing City together? Why did they have to separate again? Did you forget that my Qingpin sword is still in that strange space? I have to bring her back before I can leave here. Gohan said with a smile. Take them back to Yanjing City first. When I get the Qingpin sword back, I will also return to Yanjing City. You are talking nonsense. Hearing Gohan's relaxed words, Song Yifei raised his head angrily and looked at Gohan with a worried face. If you only want to get the Qingpin sword back, you could have gotten it when you set off. Why did you have to come to this remote border to split yourself? You don't just want to get the Qingpin sword back. You must know something, so you sent me away to enter that strange space. Why did you have to send me away? I get it. It must be because it is very dangerous there, and you are afraid that I will be hurt, so you forced me to leave. Although the monsters there are very strong, none of them is a match for you. I will not be in danger with your protection, but you still sent me away. However, you still wanted to send me away. This means that the danger there is definitely not as simple as a few monsters. There must be an even greater danger there. It's Sect Leader Tong Tian. It must be Sect Leader Tong Tian. You must know that Sect Leader Tong Tian is going back soon, so you're here to ambush him. You want to assassinate. Song Yifei was so smart that she could guess so many things in one breath. Unfortunately, she could not finish her words, because Gohan put Song Yifei and all the people here into the void and, at the same time, completely sealed the nearby void, so that Song Yifei could not come out. Yifei, if you really want to help me, then send these people back. Otherwise, on the battlefield, I have to take care of your safety. You are not a helper to me, but a burden. Do you understand? Gohan's voice sounded in the void. After Song Yifei buried her head and cried for a long time, she stood up and said to the others in a hoarse voice, Let's go. I will send you back. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.